We will have opening remarks. We will have presentation of certificates. The previous 2 days have been 2 days of very intensive training for certain advocates. So we will have a presentation of those certificates, and then we'll have a photo session with the trainees, and we'll then go to the overview of this forum. We'll have presentations about the overview of this forum and why it is relevant. We are doing this again about almost same time the previous year. We were onto the same forum, and we are back again, so we'll have an overview of that forum, and then we'll get to the keynote panel session. In the keynote panel session, I see our panelists already here, so it means that we are very, very good to go. And then we'll have the last 2 sessions, which will be another panel session, and we will close with the photo moment. Now, there are people who may not be very happy if we end such an event and you don't have a photo moment, because that's very important for them. So we'll have a photo moment as the closing last item on the agenda. So without any further ado, I'm going to ask a volunteer who, as I walked in, volunteered to give us an opening prayer. I will work with the people in the sound to help me with a microphone. And I'm going to ask Brenda Licholu, who had volunteered to give us an opening prayer. Brenda, in fact, you can just come right here so that you can give us that opening prayer, and then I'll take the privilege to be able to invite the person who is going to be giving our opening remarks. The breakfast is going to continue going on because it's just a short meeting that we are having. It's a half-day meeting. We intend to be done by 12:30, so we hope you stay with us. It's already a full room, and we are very most grateful. Thank you for honoring our invitation. Thank you for showing up this early. I already see the Vice President is here. I see it's already a full house. Brenda, you are most welcome to give us a very short opening prayer, and then we'll go to the next item of the agenda. Yes, Brenda.
Let's humble ourselves for our word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, King of Glory, we thank you for such a wonderful day, Lord. We thank you for your mercies that are new every morning, Lord, King of Glory. We thank you for each and every person in this place, Lord, for those that are still on their way, Lord. Father, King of Glory, guard their footsteps, Lord, Father, so that they get here safe, Father, King of Glory. We thank you for this forum, Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for the things that we are going to deliberate about, King of Glory. Give us a sound mind, Father, King of Glory. Give us, Father, the ears to listen, Father. Give us the eyes to see that you want us to see through this forum, Lord. We thank you. We glorify your name and magnify your name. In thy name, Jesus, we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Brenda. I think that deserves a round of applause. I know we are eating, but since it's a working breakfast, we'll find a way. I see the next 2 people who are supposed to be speaking to us are already in the room. The role of an MC is to ensure that we are able to redeem our time, and that's exactly what I'm going to be doing in this place. Ladies and gentlemen, the person that I'm welcoming to give us welcome remarks from ALP East Africa is our team leader and the head of ALP. He, as I've said before, is a pioneer of things, and when he sets out to pioneer things, he empowers others to be able to run with the vision that he has cast. We are, as the ALP East Africa team, to be under the leadership of Councillor Francis Gima, who, despite being above a certain age, which is associated with AI, he is very passionate in pushing artificial intelligence initiatives. I've not mentioned his age, but most of the adverts you will see will tell you, if you're above this age, take a crash course on how you can use AI tools. So despite being above that age, he has actually empowered us as the young team at ALP. He has motivated us to run with this vision of being in this space of artificial intelligence. We are in this room because of a vision that was birthed and one is pursued. So without further ado, I want to take this absolute privilege and honor to invite Mr. Francis Gimara, who is going to be giving us welcome remarks from ALP East Africa. Mr. Gimara, you're most welcome, sir.
The Vice President of Uganda Law Society, and distinguished guests who have all been invited to this very noble meeting. Allow me begin by, first of all, saying good morning to all of you. It's very difficult to greet while eating. In fact, in Africa, we advise against that. Reach that, say, welcome on my own behalf, and definitely on behalf of the ALP East Africa, our valued partners. I'm deeply honored to welcome you to the second East Africa AI and Digital Rights Forum. As you all know, marks the culmination of what I trust has been a productive and enriching training over the past 2 days. At ALP, we have resolved that one of the things that we must do very well is to collaborate with partners and to work with them to unpack many of the developments happening globally and locally. And as a result of that, last year, we came together as collaborators and launched a report on laws, policies, and government strategies relating to AI in Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, Rwanda, South Sudan, Mauritius, and Zambia. This landmark study, friends, has since informed a series of dialogues, research, as well as provided a reference point for policymakers and practitioners working to strengthen AI governance in our region. We always believed at ALP that we need to be at the forefront, along with other stakeholders, to work out what we call tailored legal and consulting solutions that spur an African renaissance for our clients and our communities. Over the years, we have remained loyal to this vision, and we have always ensured that we work with many people to deal with some of the challenges that confront Africa today, largely from a legal, policy, and business perspective. And whether it is research, like I've said, whether it is convening dialogues like these ones, we have ensured that we work together. And I emphasize working together because some of these challenges, friends, like you listen from the panelists today, require a collaborative effort. No one has it all. I have something that you don't have. You have something that I don't have. Mother Teresa says when you're in such a situation, you work together as a team, isn't it? So we are here to work together. And on this one, we need to collaborate because the pace at which we are seeing developments in this sector unravel would even invite us to collaborate more, isn't it? To work together with the tools we have and to use such forums like these ones to have productive conversations. Friends, like you have heard, or like you know, artificial intelligence is no longer a promise. It's here with us. It is reshaping many industries, economies, and as well as lives are being transformed. Its impact on many sectors is deep, wide, and in fact, still being studied. Within the legal profession, I've just seen bits of it. But I tell you today, I find myself reverting a lot to AI because I begin to see that the standard of negligence is going to change in a few years to come. If information is available on AI and you give a client anything less than what is on AI, then your liability from a negligence perspective begins to become clear. So you can just see that just from where you from your desk in the law firm, already the standards being required of you are beginning to change. I will not talk about the lawyers who were fined $5,000 for using AI to cite wrong authorities. But you all know that was the first case that shook the world, because I think the excitement of AI had visited those lawyers and they did not check the law report whether the authorities they were citing were indeed authorities from the courts of law. They were fined. We still won the case despite the fine. So as we embrace the opportunities and challenges, friends, let us remain vigilant. As a legal profession, what I see is that we need to have a conversation that is not being held by any other profession, because the tech companies that are developing AI models are in very deep competition. So their scale of innovation is at a very high level. So they are not attending to the risks that are emerging as much as they should. And that's why forums like this, professions like this, become very relevant. There's a worry, of course, that legal profession will be affected by AI. Yes. Please, let's accept if we are going to do ordinary things, AI is going to do them much better. You get it? But if you are going to think about what we are discussing in forums like this, policies, discrimination, data exploitation, privacy information intrusions, and things like erosion of trust in public institutions, then that kind of thinking begins to position the legal profession and indeed other professions relevantly in the AI space. Because the companies, as we know them, are in a mad rush on what technology can I come up with. So there is not enough that they are doing to deal with these issues. Because I think I was reading somewhere that I think ChatGPT on its own tried to invade, data space. And when it was questioned, it denied on its own. Now you begin to think about that. Then another model was being developed, and it attempted to act unethically. And when the developer questioned it, it threatened to reveal marital infidelity of the developer. So you can see that they are beginning to run ahead of the technology. So a lot of these test models need to begin to work within frameworks that we agree. So in a forum like this, we will acknowledge that AI is unstoppable, but we'll be questioning how much more can we do to ensure that it works in a manner that is intended to benefit humanity and not to harm humanity. So we need to ask the difficult questions and collectively look for answers. We need to ask for questions like, are we ready? Do we have sufficient governance frameworks to deploy these emerging technologies? Do we have the policies? And where the policies are there, are they robust enough? Are they transparent? Are they accountable? Importantly, how do we safeguard human rights? We should do this without any fear of contradiction or fear of what lies ahead of us, because also many times the people who write about these technologies, we get to know that people who inform the discussions mostly are the media, isn't it? But in journalism, they will always tell you that when a dog bites a man, that's not news. But when a man bites a dog, that is what is news. That's what you capture as a headline on the first page, because you will sell the newspapers on that day. That if you put an ordinary headline, dog bites a man, this is normal. When you put a headline, man bites a dog, people will stop and buy newspapers, right? You'll want to find out what kind of man is this? What happened? That's what is called news. So I'm using this analogy to tell you that a lot of information about AI and misinformation is as well perpetuated by the media. But their mindset is different. For instance, they will pick on a vehicle that's self-driving that has crashed. But they will not tell you how many vehicles are self-driving successfully home. You get it? So media informs a lot of the perceptions around AI. Where then should we get accurate information? It's in forums like this from thought leaders, isn't it? We interrogate research, we raise issues, we deal with problems. I, for one, I think AI is going to, I, for one, am looking forward to the potential of AI. I am more informed about its potential than the fears. But should we be reckless about these challenges? Absolutely no. For instance, I'm looking at a time when humanoids will be available, the robots that are being done. I'm told the cost today is $23,000. But I'm looking at a time when they will come to about less than $5,000. They are affordable. Now that humanoid, its potential to make life easy is at another level, you know? I'm looking at the time when that humanoid will be the one, you know, telling us, you know, we'll not have guards, for instance. These low-tier jobs are all going. A humanoid will have the ability to stay at your gate at night, not sleep at all, deal with thieves and any intrusions, come and wake you exactly at the time you need to be woken up. It will record all your patterns on life and remind you. It will be that PA and houseboy, security guard, that does all these things without getting tired and accurately. For instance, be reminding you of what time your football game is. And when you're watching your football game, it will know your favorite drink. Say, it's halftime now. Can I bring your soda or can I bring you juice? And it will go and pick exactly and bring to you. The potential for technologies to make life easier is immense. But like we've said, let's also be careful as a legal profession, as policymakers, as digital experts. Let's do our work. the guys developing this tech are in a mad rush, like I've already alluded. It is us who must now say, you know, tell us more about this technology. What laws are we going to use to govern it? And also to hold them to account. There's something that I need us to capture, to hold those tech companies to accountability. If that tech runs riot or begins to do prejudicial things, like one of the things we are all worried, and thankfully we are all blacks in the room, is that that technology can be developed to target particular races. So it is our duty to begin to think about, when that happens, what form of accountability must be occasioned or be brought to bear against these companies. They are not going to think about those implications for you. It is us here who are going to be the users to think about, if that happens, how we will hold them accountable. So friends, many issues are up for discussion. Thankfully, today we have competent panels to interrogate these issues. I invite you to listen in. I invite you to participate. Allow me take this opportunity to appreciate deeply and sincerely our partners. Paradigm Initiative, please clap for them. CIPESA and the East African Law Society. Their commitment and expertise has made this forum possible. I wish to acknowledge also those who contributed to the report last year, including our colleagues. We collaborated with many partner firms across East Africa. I acknowledge their contribution in the region, and I thank them for championing responsible AI development in our jurisdictions. Finally, I thank each one of you, our participants, panelists, and guests. Thank you for dedicating your time and expertise to this cause. Your engagement is what will ensure that the transformative power of AI serves all our communities fairly, ethically, and sustainably. Allow me also thank the team at ALP, Judith and Eddie Babalanda. Yes, me and Dr. Noria, my colleague here, we are of another age. Last one is correct. There is that famous advert on that if you're above this age, this is the time how to learn these technologies. It's targeting the older generation. But we are very confident in our strategy that the future is young, the future is the youth, and I can tell you they have organized this forum together with the partners 99% of the time. I acknowledge them and honor them. Thank you, the team at ALP. Once again, welcome to all of you. I wish you nothing else but a productive, thoughtful, thought-provoking, and inspiring forum. God bless all of you. Thank you. May I now take this opportunity. Our host bar is Uganda Law Society. In the house, we have the Vice President, Mr. Simwe, who is going to speak on behalf of Uganda Law Society and make remarks, and as well usher us in to the next part of the program. Put your hands and welcome Mr. Simwe, Vice President of Uganda Law Society. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you, Senior Gimara. Distinguished guests, our friends and partners from the Paradigm Initiative, collaboration on international ICT policy for East Africa, and for East Africa, for East and Southern Africa, that's CIPESA, ALP East Africa, and the East Africa Law Society, fellow legal professionals in the room, policymakers, technology experts, and civil society leaders, ladies and gentlemen, a good morning to you all. On behalf of the Uganda Law Society, I am honored to warmly welcome you to Kampala. It's a good morning. I saw the rain outside. I don't know if it's raining everywhere you're coming from, but Kampala is a beautiful place today. I do welcome you to the second East Africa Forum. It is a privilege for us to host such a distinguished gathering of legal professionals, technologists, policymakers, and civil society leaders committed to shaping a just and inclusive digital future. On that note, allow me to acknowledge the collaborative efforts of ALP East Africa, Paradigm Initiative, CIPESA, and ELS in convening this timely and important forum. We meet at a time, like Senior has been explaining, we meet at a moment when AI is reshaping our economies, legal systems, and societies. AI definitely has great promises, but from not limited to a few things, including improving public service delivery, to driving innovation and economic growth across East Africa. But again, with this promise comes a lot of questions. And these questions include data protection, ethics, governance, and the safeguarding of fundamental rights. At a time when AI is redefining how we live, how we work, and interact, it is critical that we as legal professionals actively engage in shaping the frameworks that will govern its deployment. We must ensure that this innovation does not come at the expense of rights, fairness, accountability, as well as ethics. As lawyers and defenders of justice, we must keep asking ourselves those hard questions of how can AI serve our people, not displace them? How do you protect data, privacy, and dignity in a rapidly digitalizing world? And who should be held accountable when AI goes wrong? Just like Geereesha was mentioning, she gave detail of what to expect. And as you're aware, we've started seeing some of these elements and the impact of this development. Of course, for the legal profession, it's scary. It's a scary place knowing that all the work we're supposed to do is being replaced. Most legal professionals believe and think, which is partly correct, that AI will take away their jobs. For the young lawyers who seek employment in big law firms and entities, they are no longer required to do research or paid research because it's just at a click of a button. This reminds me of a story I've been telling people. I have a client who lives abroad and was selling property. Been my client for quite some time. And she gets a buyer and sends me a message that counsel, send me a draft agreement. Of course, being the lawyer I am, I know that's instructions. I can't give away instructions. And I'm telling her, listen, just give me the details. I have to prepare this agreement. And she's saying, no, just give me any draft. I try to tell her, no, you can, when you use these precedents, you're going to make mistakes, and at the end of the day, you might fall into trouble. And she sends an interesting message, said, don't worry, I'll input AI, it will do for me the rest. Of course, I didn't send her the draft, but I can assure her I didn't handle that transaction. I don't know how it ended. I lost the instructions. And I'm sure she sold because I saw other people on the property. But she clearly told me she will just use that. She inputs AI and completes her transaction without necessarily requiring my services. This is what I've been doing for her over time. So that is the world we are going into. And again, for the legal professionals who are in practice, scary world. But again, like we are seeing, we need to embrace how do we make use of it to benefit us, not look at it as something we can fight. At the Uganda Society, we are committed to supporting our members to meet these emerging challenges and to position Uganda as a leader in ethical AI and digital rights in the region. We've been so intentional about this, and if you've been noticing, the current leadership, the one we refer to as the Radical New Bar, we have placed digital transformation at the core of our mission because that's the future. This is why forums like this one are so close to our heart. We believe that with the right tools, the right legal frameworks, and values in place, digitalization can be a powerful catalyst for improving access to justice, making legal services more inclusive, efficient. Doing the East Africa AI training for advocates 2025, which legal minds from across the region. We do not take this for granted. It's not a simple thing to do. The kind of cross-border collaboration is vital if we are to build a unified rights-based approach to AI governance in East Africa. To our conveners and partners, thank you for building this important platform. The Uganda Law Society stands ready to work with you stakeholders in fostering digital rights and advocating for inclusive policies across the East African region. Let us use today's forum not only to learn and reflect, but to commit to action, to advocacy, and to shaping the East African digital future grounded in justice, human dignity, and the rule of law. I wish all of you fruitful deliberations. Thank you.
For sharing your remarks. We appreciate your time, and indeed the Uganda Law Society for picking up the digital agenda as an important agenda to pursue. I think there is no debate about the importance of that. Earlier on, I did not acknowledge Reuters trust law, but if Sarah Gach is Sarah in? She stepped out. Yeah, I just wanted to acknowledge them as well for the great job they have done on this collaboration. I've already acknowledged their contribution. Thank you. Last one.
Yes, friends, can we give a round of applause to those welcome remarks and the remarks from ULS? It is my pleasure to take us to the next item on our agenda, and we want to get into an overview of this forum. The people that have been behind driving this dream, driving this vision, driving these engagements, we want to understand a bit more what the success has been since the inaugural forum, and that overview on the training of the lawyers that has been ongoing, and what the partners are doing, and probably so that you can also know where do I plug in. So it's my pleasure to invite firstly Mr. Edmond Babalanda, who is going to be leading the discussion in this overview. Edmond Babalanda is an associate with ALP Advocates, the Uganda office of ALP East Africa, where I am privileged to be giving leadership as the head of the Uganda office. My name is Laston Gulume Apologies, I didn't introduce myself earlier. We'll have Miriam Beatrice Wanjiru. Miriam Beatrice Wanjiru is with Paradigm Initiative, and I'm going to be asking her to join us here. She gave us a very good example of AI issues in our inaugural AI forum, where she asked AI, how old do you think I am? And who can you describe me? And the AI described her as someone who is male, black, and in her 40s. So, but we'll be there yet, we'll be there. I want to invite my dear brother and friend, Gabriel Achaye. Gabriel Achaye, for some of us who follow the East African Law Society webinars, that is one voice you'll not miss in a webinar. Welcoming you to the webinar and handing you over to the panelists. So Gabriel, this time, you're part of the panel, and we are going to welcome Gabriel Achaye to be joining us on the panel. That is not it. Yes, and then I'll invite Edmond Abalanda to take us through this session as Sarah Ngachi joins us. Sarah, you're most welcome. This panel will not be complete without you and without your insights, but I will welcome Eddie to take over from there. Eddie, you're most welcome.
Okay, thank you, Laston. Good morning. I hope you're having a great time. Okay, it's not a panel per se. We're just going to share about the successes we've had and how this started. My name is Edmond, as Laston has introduced me, and I have the pleasure of speaking at this year's forum. Now, this African AI Forum started last year, and it started as ALP East Africa Forum. Last year, we started, the main focus was on a launch of a report. And we launched a research report that we had conducted jointly with the Paradigm Initiative and Thomson Reuters and other lawyers in East Africa. This research was focusing on laws, policies, and government strategies on AI governance in East Africa, Mauritius, and Zambia. So after that session, we sat down and had a conversation as we were debriefing. And of course, we've always had the support of people like Senior Counsel, Mr. Gimara, Dr. Honoria, Benga from Paradigm Initiative, and the team from Thomson Reuters. And we said, how about we think about making this East African, and also how do we engage lawyers? Because we see that most people are focusing on the business community. So we are saying, yes, we need to also cover each and every aspect of AI and everyone involved in the ecosystem. But how about we think about something for lawyers? So we come up with an idea of training lawyers in East Africa. And when we presented that idea to our team leaders and respective, they endorsed it. And we are happy to let you know that starting this year and moving forward, we'll have the East Africa AI and digital rights training for advocates. So it's a fully funded training. This year we started with 8 participants, fully funded from Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, and Rwanda, and South Sudan. I had forgotten South Sudan. You see, they always forget South Sudan. Gift. Because even in our research, when we did our research, we looked at the research and there is no single law that talks about AI. Okay, most African countries have not yet talked about or enacted laws that provide or govern AI. But when you go to our neighboring country, our brothers, they're bleeding. So we thought that we need them, and we are happy that today we have South Sudan represented and participants from the other countries. So the subsequent years, thank you. For next year, we will have Ethiopia as well, we'll have, what is that? DRC, Somalia, and Burundi. So we are happy. It was, first of all, I forgot to tell you, we sent out an application. It's interesting how the turn up and, the interest that was demonstrated by lawyers, advocates across the region. We received over 500 applications from the region, and we only needed 10. And it was really tough for us to choose, but somehow we managed to. So we are happy to have this training. It concluded yesterday, and we'll have certificates presented today. But then also, I want to thank the different collaborators who will also be speaking. First, I want to thank Paradigm Initiative. They have given us a lot of support. They're not just conveners, but they've been our lead sponsor. So we thank you, Miriam and the team, for the support you've given. CIPESA, we thank them for the support, for the expertise, and sending facilitators and training for the forum. The East African Law Society has also supported in terms of capacity and also providing CPD and CLE points. In Uganda, we call them CLE. In other countries, it's CPD points. And of course, Professor Guy Bagger. Professor Guy Bagger is not here. He's a South African professor. And as a way to spice up this forum, he has granted, it's like a scholarship, a training for 2 participants. We have 2 participants that are going to enroll for his course for about 4 weeks, and then it gives them an opportunity to enroll for a Stellenbosch University certificate on media and digital regulation and online policy. So we are happy, and we believe that this will grow bigger and it becomes a great opportunity for all lawyers in the region. So I don't want to waste a lot of time. That is the overview I wanted to give. So I want to welcome Miriam. Miriam will just share about what PIN does, but then also briefly her experience with the training and the forum we have today. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone. Where I come from these days, we say good morning, cousins. The Kenyans in the room, it's a political statement these days, but good morning. Allow me to stand on already existing protocols and welcome you to day 3 of our East Africa AI and Digital Rights training. My name is Miriam Beatrice Wanjiru. I work with a fantastic organization called Paradigm Initiative. I'll tell you a little bit about Paradigm Initiative if you do not know what Paradigm Initiative is. But over and above all, everything, this is not my first time in Kampala. In fact, I do enjoy my trips in Kampala. The haters will say I only come here for the chicken because the chicken is to die for. I have been in many places, many cities, many countries, but the chicken in Uganda just has something. I don't know what you do to the birds, but I can't get enough of the chicken in Uganda. But yeah, that's what the haters will say, that I am only here for the chicken. So don't listen to the haters. I am, in fact, here to work, and I quite enjoy the conversation, engagements. We need to fix this. We continuously have in Kampala, Uganda. So as I mentioned, I work for Paradigm Initiative, and Paradigm Initiative is a Pan-African non-governmental organization that champions digital rights and digital inclusion. We have a presence in 6 African countries. Our headquarters is in Lagos, Nigeria, and in East Africa, our office is in Nairobi, Kenya. So I coordinate work in the region. I want to welcome all of you to our day 3. So for most of you, it is day 1, but for a lot of us who've been here throughout the week, taking exams and, talking about AI policies, it is day 3 for us. But this forum is increasingly becoming a platform, and it's increasingly allowing us to continue with the momentum of, as a region, having honest and quite urgent conversations about regulation with specific focus for East Africa. We began the week with participants been mentioned here from Rwanda. If I mention the country, please allow me or please help me to, just applaud them. I know we'll call them later, but we had participants from Rwanda, so just help me. We had participants from Kenya. We had I can see you, even if I can see you. We have participants from South Sudan. We had participants from Uganda and participants from Tanzania. And I can tell you it has been quite an intense week. We've done a lot of deep dives around digital rights. That's where we started. What do we mean about digital rights? Why is it important? What is the correlation between digital rights and artificial intelligence? Issues around data protection. We did a whole lot around strategic litigation. We did a whole lot about AI governance. And over the past few days, specifically the past 2 days, we've seen participants from the countries that I've mentioned really roll up their sleeves. We've had intense debates. We've analyzed cases, some theoretical cases, some real cases. We've had a lot of co-creating. We've had a lot of conversations around what does ethics mean? Ethical AI, what does that mean? Inclusive AI governance, what does that mean? And the energy has been nothing short of inspiring. I did enjoy the week for many reasons. One of them is I was the only lawyer in the room for the 2 days. So I was telling them I felt very protected and I can misbehave because I know I will be protected in court. And so today we wrap up the week as a culmination to celebrate the participants, our inaugural cohort, and we intend to do this every year. So we are wrapping up and we are culminating all the conversations and the training that has gone on. And so we are moving from the classroom to having a sort of broader conversation around the topics I have mentioned. And in the room, you'll be hearing from policymakers. We have, without, giving away too much, a few commissioners, we have legal experts, obviously we have human rights defenders. I have seen a few faces that I know. We have tech innovators. We have, a good number of, people in the space, the movers and shakers of digital rights, digital inclusion in the sector. And for participants, this is an excellent opportunity to network outside of the classroom with these great minds. One of the things we'll be reflecting around today is the Malabo Convention, because as we spoke at length about, the foundation of artificial intelligence is data, and it's a fantastic place to start. I'm being told I'm enjoying my time here too much. So we'll be having a conversation around that. I am told someone from the Data Protection Commission will be here, so look out for that. We'll also be having conversations around, a few resolutions that have been proposed at the African Union level and what that means to our region. We'll also be having the pleasure of listening to the special rapporteur from the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, so look out for that as well. And as I conclude, I would just like to iterate, and speaking on behalf of Paradigm Initiative, that this is a movement that we are really keen on seeing grow, not just this year, but in years to come. It's a conversation that is very, very near and dear to us. And as has been mentioned, we are not just co-conveners, but we put a lot of heart and resources to seeing this movement grow. So unfortunately, a lot of my colleagues could not have made it. They wanted to, but it's maybe later we'll talk about why we still need visas to access countries in our own continent. So a few of them could not be granted visas in good time to attend the forum, but I passed their greetings and loves and regards, and I hope you'll send me back with salamus and greetings. Lastly, I want to encourage all of us as we engage in different conversations today that may we lean in, may we ask the hard questions, may we start to imagine a digital future where human rights are not an afterthought. but a foundation even when we are talking about innovation. Let us have candid, honest conversations. I believe East Africa is rightly placed to lead the AI conversation on the continent and beyond. So I hope we will have a fun-filled day. There's plenty of food. If you haven't picked breakfast, please feel free to do so. I wish all of us meaningful connections and bold thinking. And lastly, as I hand over and invite my colleague from the East Africa Law Society, just to give an update. So Laston had briefly mentioned that the first time I interacted with ChatGPT specifically, I had given it a few prompts. So I asked, based on everything, and for the people who were here last year for the AI forum, you remember, I told you that it said, based on the prompts that I had given, I am a 40-year-old male at the time. I want to report now that we've known each other. It's been a year of knowing each other, and ChatGPT now calls me bestie. Like, hey, bestie, you're doing great. Keep the good work, keep championing. At least you're beginning to know each other. However, it is not well, and speaking broadly across all just the entire conversation around AI, we have a really long way to go. Yesterday night, before I slept, I asked ChatGPT to give me an image of where Wakanda is located on the continent. And it gave me an image of Africa. You can try it on your phone. And it said Wakanda is somewhere in East Africa. So that means we still have a bit of work to do in terms of developing AI systems. I hope the next time we're having the AI forum, I will come back and report and say, now at least Wakanda is not part of the African continent, and our data, is rightly reflected on some of the systems. And so thank you very much. I hope to interact with all of you on a one-on-one. Hopefully enjoy a plate of chicken together before we leave the country. And at this point, I'd like to invite Gabriel, and in the spirit of making AI better, Wakanda forever. Welcome, Gabriel.
Thank you, Beatrice. You've laid a very wonderful foundation to our discussion this morning, and you intimated that East Africa was in the room. So permit me to greet you and say, Muraho neza. Muraho neza. Habari zenu. Bonjour à tous. Mwasuze mutia. That's the majority in the room. My name is Gabriel Achaye, and I come from the East Africa Law Society. I bring you very warm greetings from our lovely CEO, Mr. David Sigano, and my dear president, Mr. Ramadan Abubakar. Unfortunately, they're unable to be here this morning, but they're with us in spirit. And on behalf of the society, I'm privileged to honor to deliver these remarks at a moment where law and technology, human rights are no longer conversations that are separate, but are shared and urgent on the agenda. This forum has not just been any other training. Like Beatrice said, it's been an inaugural cohort, and it's been a strategic investment for a reason, because we managed to acknowledge that our profession must evolve to meet the realities of the digital world, where power increasingly lies in algorithms and not just laws. This forum has equipped our participants not only with knowledge, but with vision. And it's no small thing, because as a region and across the continent, we face pressing questions that often require us to make a choice. And do we sit down and just interpret frameworks written elsewhere, or do we build frameworks that reflect our own values, contexts, and aspirations? Over the past 2 days, we've discussed everything, like Beatrice has said, from AI governance to digital rights litigation, from corporate due diligence to content moderation. These are not just theoretical issues, and they're just shaping our lives as we know it every day. So I would like to take a moment at this juncture to speak about the East Africa Law Society an institution that I'm very privileged to represent this morning. We are not just a regional bar. We are the premier bar, and we have a membership of 8 countries, including Somalia, which we Ethiopia rather, which we recently admitted at our annual law conference here in Kampala. So this platform of East Africa Law Society is a platform of leadership, collaboration, and influence. So whether you're based right here in Kampala, Arusha, Kigali, Bujumbura, or Juba, ELS is your gateway for shaping the future of law and policy in East Africa. We believe in building a community where lawyers are not just consumers of global legal trends, but creators of new legal standards. So whether it's through regional litigation, policy advisory, innovation, or continuing professional development, ELS exists to help you tap into cross-border opportunities, share expertise, and collectively raise the bar. So to all lawyers that are here and those joining us online, I urge you, do not silo your skills. The future of our profession will be interdisciplinary, multilingual, and regionally rooted. So engage with us, lead through us, and let's write a legal future for East Africa together. My esteemed colleagues and partners, Paradigm Initiative, CIPESA, and LLP, your leadership has really been essential and timely in delivering this training. And you've not just trained lawyers, you've nurtured a regional community of thinkers and doers ready to lead. So our participants will be testing you from time to time on the skills that you have acquired. So do not just carry your certificate, it's a responsibility. Advise wisely, act ethically, and when necessary, challenge systems that put others at risk, as we shared in the course of the 2 days. So East Africa Law Society is committed to standing with you as you do your work, not just in courtrooms, but beyond courtrooms and boardrooms. So as I close, I would like to quote the words of a strategic thinker and writer, Nanjala Nyabola, who reminds us that technology is not neutral. It reflects the priorities of those who build it. Let us ensure that those priorities in East Africa and beyond reflect justice, dignity, and public good. Beatrice shared an example. AI thought she was a 40-year-old male, and now they are besties. So it's what you feed into this AI that develops its mindset. And as I conclude, I would like to urge you to follow us at East Africa Law Society. We have lots of training opportunities coming up in this month of July. We ostensibly will train a cohort again of lawyers in sub-Saharan Africa on digital rights. So look out for that. It's an amazing session for you all to attend. With that, asante sana, murakoze chane, merci beaucoup. Thank you. I would now invite my dear sister Sarah to make her remarks here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sarah Ngachi. I'm a legal officer at Thomson Reuters Foundation, based at the Nairobi office. For those who may not know, Thomson Reuters Foundation is affiliated to Reuters Media, based at the headquartered in London, and we work to inform free and fair societies by also helping them access law and access justice. I think today's panel really is about speaking about where we came from, and for me, it's a personal relationship with ALP East Africa, because through them we have had this collaboration with all these other partners. I remember in 2023, I met Mr. Gimara while sitting on a panel. I must say I was the youngest on that panel, both in size and in age and in title. I think Mr. Gimara was so tall, his legs must have been spreading over the panel, but we shared a panel at the ELS annual conference. And I spoke to him and to Dr. Honoria on a possible partnership. I had just joined Thomson Reuters and very eager to spread our work as the legal officer for Africa. So when I spoke to him about pro bono, that's where our conversation started. He's like, yeah, we do pro bono, so we can join. I'm like, okay, great. And then the next thing I know, we are now discussing AI, and he's handing me over to Eddie and Laston, and then I just got affiliated to the whole ALP team, all the way to the Nigeria office. So it's been an amazing 2 years journey that we have worked together with ALP. And through that, we have worked in collaboration with Paradigm. CIPESA has been our key partners, and I can shout out to Policy, Trisha and the team, and it's been great just working together with civil society organizations to advance AI governance in Africa. And over the 2 years, we have seen a lot of changes, both at organizational level, but also regional level. We've seen a rapid evolution of AI. We've seen a continent that is marred by internet shutdowns, authoritative governments. We've had protests in different countries. I think Kenya is the leading example of the country that can protest from the bottom of our hearts. And as a Kenyan, I must say that very proudly. We protest with bans, and we protest with everything that we can access. And just so you know that Miriam is a key protester in Kenya. In case you find her on the streets, please protect her. Yeah, but with all that, we've come to understand that we need to bridge the gap on access to law. And Thomson Reuters is, I would say, that is our key pillar, to provide pro bono legal support to civil society organizations, to journalists, to provide training, to provide resources, and we have had the support of amazing, amazing law firms, some of which are here with us in the room. Unfortunately, I cannot name a lot of them because we are so many, but they have provided amazing support to our members. And as we look to the future, now that we are moving to providing or giving back to the lawyers, we've been giving back to civil society, but now we want to equip the lawyers with knowledge. We're looking at not just AI governance and digital rights, but we have been discussing with like CIPESA, thinking about litigation in the different countries that we are based in, especially on the digital rights issues that we are facing. And I'm happy to see the Vice President of ULS. I do not know why we didn't have you on Wednesday, but it would have been an honor to have you there and to see how we can spread this to other bar associations and bring as many lawyers as possible to discuss the future of AI governance, digital rights, and also to think about how to bring the big tech in the room, because we keep on talking to ourselves as civil society, and we forget that we are using technology that's developed by Microsoft, and they're not our enemies, really. So how do we bring them to the table and start these discussions? Some of these lawyers are actually legal officers in these big tech companies. So how do we bridge that gap? And I must say, one thing our CEO, Mr. Antonio, usually says is, Thomson Reuters, we bring together people in the room, all of them, both government, tech, corporations, and we want to bring that discussion to the next AI forum. Let us have all the actors on the table. Let us not talk to ourselves. And let us also see a way in which we can continuously monitor. So we are talking about 1 year since last year when we started this forum. What about the next year? Let's see how we can monitor the progress that we are making in our different countries. In closing remarks, I just want to give a big thank you to the team at Thomson Reuters Foundation. I know they might be joining online. Elizabeth Knight, who is my manager and the program manager for this program, who Eddie has been working very closely with from the London office. We have Lydia Obiero, Elizabeth Onyango, who is our head of Africa Hub, and generally to the team at Thomson Reuters from London. And just to say, we now have a tool called AI Company Disclosure Initiative that we have developed, where it is a repository of information to any investor that wants to invest in AI technologies, to get information on how companies are complying with AI in the age of human rights. So we are trying to bring an intersection between AI and human rights and the impact of that. And we have developed that. It's going to go, it's actually live. I'm happy to share the link, the QR code. And you can check a lot of the material that we have developed on the websites. We have toolkits for both journalists. We also look at AI usage in journalism, and we have trainings and toolkits that we have developed. And one of them has been developed pro bono by ALP East Africa, which will be published very soon. So thank you so much, and I hope we can interact more. And please feel free to, when you're in Nairobi, please pass by our office. We are very generous, and we will offer you coffee and a lot of other nice things. We will think about them. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite Adrian, from CIPESA.
Ladies and gentlemen present, I want to take this opportunity to welcome you to this forum. And I also want to take this opportunity to welcome the online community that is listening in and also watching us. Thank you so much for joining us. I also want to take this opportunity to acknowledge the presence of, I think, one of the only people who taught me when I was in law school, Dr. Henry Honoria. So if you're about 35 years and above, you might have been taught by him. So if you're there and you say he was your lecturer, no cutting edge. So if you're 35 and upwards, at least you were taught by him. So I'm here to briefly speak about CIPESA. CIPESA stands for Collaboration on International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa. As the name says it, CIPESA works across the continent. We are based in Uganda, in Kampala here, but we work across the continent. And how we are able to be present across the continent is because we work through partnerships and collaboration. So we have partners across the continent, especially in East, Southern, and Western Africa. And we are also trying as much as possible to penetrate Northern Africa. So CIPESA, by way of short background, is an organization that was created as a response to emerging information gaps. And the main aim was to accelerate access to information, especially by the use of ICT, or information and communication technology. So since then, CIPESA has positioned itself as a leading think tank in the use of information and communication technologies as enablers for improving livelihoods across the continent. And CIPESA is able to achieve this because it works through research and documentation. We are a very strong research organization, and if you checked out our website, you'll be able to find anything on digital rights and internet freedoms. We also engage through capacity building of the different sector players, including members of parliament, government agencies. We work hand in hand with advocates, we work hand in hand with lawyers, we work hand in hand with other civil society organizations in this country and across the continent. The other way through which we work is through strategic litigation, and that's why we've been keen on the partnership with ALP East Africa, East Africa Law Society, Thomson Reuters, Paradigm Initiative, as well as the Uganda Law Society, with which we also do some joint trainings, especially in as far as digital rights are concerned. In this strategic litigation, we aim at capacitating lawyers across the continent on how to strategically litigate on digital rights issues, but also beyond just litigating, we also aim to build their capacities to engage in those issues and also how to respond collaboratively or jointly with other partners from the other parts of the continent. And also as part of other engagements that we work through movement building and convenings, and that's why we are able to span across the continent And on that note, we are a leading convener of the African Forum on Internet Freedoms in Africa, which is an annual event. And this year is going to be the 14th chapter, which is going to be held in Windhoek, Namibia. And I want to take this opportunity once again to welcome each one of you that can join as we deliberate on those issues, including AI and governance, to join us in Windhoek, Namibia, come September, around 24th to 27th of September this year. You're very welcome to join us. So in short, we respond to most of these works by, as I mentioned, doing research and engaging various stakeholders. And for this particular meeting that we are having, we are very keen on following up on issues of artificial intelligence and the related governance issues, especially in as much as it intersects with data protection and privacy. So we are keen on following up on the various data protection frameworks in country, within the region, and beyond, spanning into Europe and other jurisdictions that offer really persuasive guidelines that we could be inclined to relying on to better the space of data protection and privacy on the continent. So CIPESA welcomes you to join its league and its team of the different players that can be part of it. You're very welcome. As I wind up, I work as in-house counsel for CIPESA, and I've been there for quite some time. We have taken this work way beyond. I also, for the previous years, I've been heading cyber law at UCU and media law and policy, part of what we have been using to ensure that the breed of lawyers that we produce in the next generation at least are empowered to effectively deal with this new oil of the globe, which you're talking about, data protection and artificial intelligence. With that, I want to appreciate you once again for coming and to appreciate every partner and the online community. And also state categorically that you're very welcome to continue taking part in these conversations. Please avail yourselves as and when we need you, such that we can make the world better in the wake of artificial intelligence and the potential impacts it poses to humanity, including the different digital rights and freedoms. Thank you very much.
Please, can you join me to give another round of applause to the team that has taken us through the forum? So, like we said, photos are important. Adrian, please come back. Sarah Ngachi, please come back. Patricia, we need you. You're very central in training the people, and you're about to perform a very important function. Gabriel. Friends, we welcome more people to join these engagements. Doctor, the senior. Yeah, those that are above 35 who were taught by doctor. And those are the ones to whom that advert applies. If you're above a certain age, you need to take a crash course on how to use AI. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the team that has been behind the 2 days intensive training of advocates who saw that flyer that had a caption, fully funded. The ones that quickly applied, I am advised that the moment they saw it is a fully funded one, by the time the notice expired and people were coming late to the party, we were already past over 500 applications. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to our certificate awarding ceremony where we'll have we have an awards certificate ceremony of our participants, and I'm going to firstly invite, it's my absolute honor and privilege, I'm going to work with let me work with Miriam on this, and I'm going to invite the Vice President of the Law Society to do us the honors to hand over some of the certificates to our participants who were undergoing the 2 days training. In no particular order, we will be inviting one participant. The cameras, let the cameras roll. It's a very important moment for our participants, but I will gladly invite my Vice President of the Uganda Law Society, and in no particular order, I will first invite Raymond. Raymond, receive his certificate. Thank you for the cameras. Thank you for those hands of applause. We could have issued AI certificates, but sometimes people need physical evidence. Raymond, congratulations. In no particular order, I will invite David Bahige Mutume. David, congratulations, sir. You receive your certificate of participation. That is David. I don't know whether that was your walk up stage. But that is David. Congratulations. David is from Rwanda. He's a Ugandan trade lawyer. He's enrolled here in Uganda and is currently practicing in Rwanda as well. I will invite in no particular order Iriho Nadege. Iriho, congratulations. Congratulations. I don't know if those are the songs you asked for. Yeah, but congratulations. Take your moment, take your photo with the Vice President. And still in no particular order, one of my good friends and brothers from the East African Law Society. Some people were wondering, is he the facilitator, is he the sponsor? Actually, Stromward, please, you're welcome. You're usually sponsoring events and you're in the kitchen preparing. This time you were a participant, you sat through the trainings. Congratulations, sir. Congratulations. I don't know whether that is the song you asked for, but I believe this one must, Mr. Opio Isaac Peter, this one must have asked for a particular number. Opio Isaac Peter, you're most welcome. The color has nothing to do with the event. Yeah, we're just saying the color of the shirt has nothing to do with the event. Yes, Opio Isaac, my brother with Kesmo, congratulations. The next person I'm inviting, you had better find a Swahili song. Catherine Wanjehia. Catherine, congratulations. Congratulations. We have a group, the WhatsApp group, where some people post in Swahili. And if you don't know Swahili, you have to find AI to help you interpret. Catherine, congratulations. Yes, still in no particular order, from South Sudan. Eddie made a statement which I don't want to own. We never forget any country in the East Africa. Emma Gift Luate, congratulations. Gift practices with ALP South Sudan as the practice director there. And we are very passionate about building capacity. And in no particular order, I want to invite Emma Njoki. Emma, congratulations, Emma Njoki. Congratulations. It has been 2 days of very intensive training, some sleepy eyes, late evening exercises. Congratulations. Congratulations. Yes, congratulations. If you're clapping, last but not least, the name, I asked AI how to pronounce this, but to Sumbilege Boniface Mwakubusi. Congratulations. Congratulations. AI didn't help much. I tried, AI didn't help much, but there is a Boniface, that one I can read. Mwabukusi. Okay, thank you, Mwakubusi. Boniface, congratulations, my sister. Thank you. If you're clapping, you're doing a good thing. Mr. Vice President, I will still ask you to remain up here with me. Yes, because we don't want you to give out certificates and you go without anything. So we are going to honor you by taking a photo with our participants.
This just in.
Yes, so we'll invite back our participants
is wanted by an evil
to join the Vice President.
censoring the powerful voice of the
and they will take a photo. Please, all our participants who have received their certificates, it would be good if you come with your certificates and you join our vice president. I am not the director of photography. I don't know how to arrange you, so the people who are doing the photography, you will help us be able to arrange our participants so that we have. And then in the same, after we have a photo with our vice president, I want to invite our sponsors, the representatives of our sponsors. You're going to be still also taking a photo with our participants. I'll join later, don't worry. Let me remain here. I'll know when to join. So I know you're pushing me away, director of photography, but I'll join. So shortly, I want to invite our representatives, Patricia from CIPESA, Edwin from CIPESA, Priam. I want to invite Sarah, Edmond, the trainers, Dr. Noria. Just after this photo second, I want to invite you also to join in this photo moment. Okay, so we will have our trainers, our sponsors join this team. You will still find a way of organizing us. Yes, you will find a way of organizing us, do a mix and match. We are getting to the last final session. 2 sessions of our in our time management. We are doing well. We have sufficient time to be able to conclude the remaining 2 activities of our engagement this morning. But it's very exciting. We are live on YouTube. You can share the link on YouTube, the East Africa AI Forum 2025. We are live on YouTube. You can share this link with contacts to be able to follow. You can also share the hashtags. Yes, so you can share that hashtag. We have a QR registration code. So when it's displayed on the screen, you'll get out your phone that is able to post there. There are some phones that are not able. So if you're above a certain age and you have a certain phone which is a smartphone, when the QR code is put up on the screen, you'll get your phone, you scan the QR code. How do you scan the QR code? You go to your camera and then you point your phone towards the screen. And I see the people who are below a certain age already know. Let me go through the step by step. So for people so when you point your camera to the screen, your camera will be able to capture the details of the QR code, and when you tap onto it, you'll be taken to a link. When you tap scan, I hope certain cameras are able to also scan from a distance. If they're able to scan from a distance, you'll be able to pick up the details, the registration details. Now, ladies and gentlemen, as we are still doing that, I was privileged to sit into some of the sessions that were happening, the training, and also participate in the training in one way or the other. And I want to say it was a very intensive training. The Council of Elders was not allowed to participate in the award of the 2 people that were that performed outstandingly. Everyone was excellent, but there are 2 particular people that I'm going to invite. Patricia from CIPESA to do us the honors. She's the most favorite facilitator in this training. Patricia, you're most welcome.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I am Patricia Ainembabazi from CIPESA. To the participants, please note that you all did well. I wouldn't like to take favoritisms. And why we did this, the 2 people that won are going to be getting they'll be able to upgrade the certificate and get a signed one from Stellenbosch University in South Africa with Prof. Guy. Some of you know this person. Allow me to just call them up. Opio Isaac Peter. as well as Emma Njoki. Once again, you all did well, and I'm waiting for her to get up here. All the groups, we had a set of questions. They were sort of like mind juggling, or sort of trying to make them remember and pinpoint what they learned in the last 2 days. We had sectioned them in 2 groups. So the people you see here were one in group 1 and group 2. With different participants. We had different countries, so don't see Uganda and Kenya and think that we didn't think about South Sudan, or I know you will pick it out. You mentioned it yesterday, or Tanzania, or the other countries. Of the 2, Emma Njoki still came up best with participation as well as answering of the questions and showing understanding of the concepts that we were sharing. I invite my colleague, Beatrice from Paradigm Initiative. She has some small goodies for you guys as you work your way to affiliations with Stellenbosch down in South Africa. Thank you. Yeah, so this training is, yeah, we'll take a picture. They'll be getting a certificate that shows their wits around media and digital regulation on online policy. Oh, please come back. There is a picture with me.
Yes, thank you for that picture moment. Thank you so much, Patricia. Thank you. And also, please stay. The pictures are still going on. I have not taken one yet. Wait, please stay. Miriam? Yes. Miriam, please join the picture as well. You're the one who has handed us our goodies. The MC is also waiting. Yes. Thank you for that picture moment. We want to hear a few words from the trainees. Now, the trainees, while you hear trainees, they are fellow advocates. They are practicing advocates. So I'm going to invite Njoki, who is going to give us a bit of recap and debrief what the experience has been, and what their takeaways, what the call is the next time that flyer goes out and it has fully funded. What should other advocates do? Njoki, you're welcome to give your remarks. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. As you've heard, my name is Njoki Kimemia from Kenya. I'm an advocate of the High Court of Kenya and currently practicing the space of data protection, AI, cybersecurity. And it's quite a privilege to be here, especially as a lady. I really champion for women in tech. So it's really a privilege to be here. Thanks to yes. Another thing is just the training over the 3 days. It's been very inspiring. Not just from a point of because I practice these things, but I believe everyone is a student. In every day you learn something new. I wouldn't call myself an expert. I'm always learning from others, and I'd say I'm just happy. Sorry, I'm on the spot with this speech, so I'm just bringing it as I go. And lastly, I really want to thank God for this opportunity, and I'm hoping for more opportunities, especially for ladies. I mean, if you noticed our cohort, it had a lot of guys, so I'm really hoping the next cohort will have a lot of ladies. And let me just leave you with one biblical quote. I don't have one inspired by AI or anything like that, but I live by the, I think it's Psalms or Proverbs 46:15. And it says, God is within her, she will not fail. So I feel like that has carried me through the days that I've been here. So thank you.
Thank you so much and congratulations. We only have 2 items left on our agenda, and then people who want to have chicken with Miriam, she will be available as she enjoys the Kampala chicken. She sent a message to the haters. I will invite Edmond Babalanda, who is going to be taking us through the next very short panel session. Edmond Babalanda, you are most welcome. And thereafter, before Edmond actually comes, let me first invite Sarah Ngachi, who is going to first take us through the keynote panel session before we go to the last panel session. So Sarah, you're most welcome.
What happiness is you, hey, clap along if you feel like that's what you want to do.
Hi everyone again. So we will move directly to the keynote panel, and we have an amazing lineup. But first, I was hoping that the panel will be projected, but so this panel is looking at 1 year of the African Convention on Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection, the Malabo Convention, and a discussion of its relevance and application in Africa. So just to give a bit of context, the Malabo Convention was adopted in 2014, if I'm not wrong, and it's been 9 years of African countries debating whether they want to have a regional framework on data protection or not, and whether it's, I would say, to some extent serves their interests. And since then, there have been a lot of developments in 9 years. If a child was born, they're probably 8 years old. We have had maandamanos in Kenya in 9 years. We have changed governments. We've seen a lot of changes. And finally, the 15th African country ratified the convention, and it entered into force last year. No, not last year, sorry, 2023, in June. And we are now looking at how far we have come as African states and the willingness of African countries to not only protect and uphold data protection and digital rights, but also to address cyber threats in Africa. And in the 9 years, the convention has faced criticism. There have been evolutions on AI technology, emerging digital technologies in Africa. We have seen an evolution of tech-facilitated gender-based violence. We have seen how conflict countries are now using AI or emerging technologies to spread misinformation and to cause harm. And we've also seen the AU, surprisingly, passing their AI strategy last year, and the EU giving us a pace setter of an EU AI Act. So today's panel will be discussing that evolution and what it means for Africans, especially for us who are using technologies from the north, if I may call it that way, and what it means for us in terms of ensuring protection and upholding our digital rights. And we have Dr. Henry Honoria. Please take the stage. Dr. Honoria is General Counsel at ALP East Africa. We have Alice Namuli Blazevic, who is a partner at CATS. Alice, please a round of applause as they come. And I must say, Alice has a very impressive CV on AI and emerging technologies, and I'm sure we are all excited to hear about her work. We will have Miriam Beatrice Wanjiru from Paradigm. Miriam, and joining virtually, we hope technology will not fail her, in Nigeria, will be Khadija El Usman, who is a programs officer senior programs officer at Paradigm. Hopefully she will be able to join us. Thank you. So let us start with Dr. Honoria, and kindly allow me, colleagues, to take a seat. As you can see, I am challenged vertically, and it's difficult to keep standing here. In short, I am short. That's what I was trying to say. We will start with Dr. Honoria. Doctor, for those who don't know, I think people have said doctor has been their teacher for those who are 35 and above, right? Okay. For us young people, I don't know what we should talk about ourselves, but we have had the privilege of learning from Doctor, not just on the legal issues, but also life-related issues, and seeing him just not only in the corridors of justice, but in platforms like this. And he is an eminent scholar. right from Uganda to South Sudan to the US. I think yesterday you mentioned something about Geneva. So you have been everywhere in the globe. And he's also in Pretoria, I didn't know that. Yeah, Pretoria. And he's a knowledge partner at ALP East Africa. He has a vast repository of knowledge, not just on AI and human rights, but he has also been leading a lot of the ALP work on the East Africa community, harmonization of laws, and we are very privileged to have you. So, Doc, we will just jump on to the first issue on this question of data protection and digital rights in Africa. Since the Malabo Convention, just give a few remarks of what developments we have seen in the region and some of the challenges we have witnessed. And just to add on that, we've also seen the evolution of digital rights protection in the EU region, and we've heard of, in the past 2 days, the Brussels effect and how we are borrowing a lot from the EU. And what impact does it have on Africa regional frameworks on protection of data and digital rights?
Yes, thank you, Sarah. And I'll also just extend my welcome to everybody joining this forum and this particular panel discussion. Yes, as Sarah has already pointed out, the Malabo Convention is over 11 years old since it was adopted, only taking ratification almost 9 years later. And remember, ratification for African conventions is just 15 of the 54 members. That's a very small number of people, ratifications we need to get a convention in place, into force. And so that's a bit disappointing. But that's the reality of African governments. They take too long to ratify conventions that you'd have assumed they have agreed in principle too. While Malabo Convention might have come into force, there are so many. In fact, the bulk of the generation here, Gen Zs and millennials, probably it's time to take up the governments of Africa. There's a whole batch of youth conventions that have been sitting for the last 10 years also, which probably need to come into force. But talking about the Malabo Convention, yes, the convention is on cyber security and personal data protection. Now, the beauty about it is that it has influenced much of the data protection laws. Those of you who are attending the training, we've indicated how many countries have data protection laws now, including within the region, Uganda, Kenya, but also it's informing other frameworks and soft law approaches in other parts of Africa. Unfortunately, the question is the convention still relevant? Does it need to be updated? Now, good thing is there have been developments separate from Malabo. For instance, the AU Convention on AI, policy on AI. So these have been going on. So that means the beauty about conventions is that you can always amend them. You can always do protocols to bring them to align with whatever the best practices and developments are. Now, the good thing also is that apart from legislation, you have data protection authorities that have grown up across the continent. There's growing digital rights advocacy. This is part of it. CIPESA, the work by Paradigm Initiative, by Thomson, Reuters, that's all part of the advocacy. And I think the call now for us is to move beyond just data protection and cybersecurity, which was the purpose of the Malabo Convention, to address now the uniqueness of AI and digital rights. I was looking at Zambia, and they just resplit. Actually, they split their Cyber Crimes and Security Act of 2021, repealed it, and created two separate laws: a Cyber Security Act and a Cyber Crimes Act 2025. I don't know whether that makes it easier to address the specificity of crimes and security, but that's what they have done. But it shows you that there's still implications for it. Now, there have also been implications for regional harmonization processes. ECOWAS has a supplementary act on personal data protection of 2010 that has been influenced by West African laws, but also there's a SADC model law on data protection. So these are developments that have come up in the wake of the convention, even though it was not in force for that long period of time. The challenges that are going on are immense. We still have, as I already pointed out, the low ratifications of the convention. It took the 15th state to get us across the line, but still, even after 2023, we have not even reached half of the African countries adopting it. Because you see, much of what then tends to inform what happens in the domestic law and policy is then informed by the treaties we ratified. So if we have still very many countries not ratifying the Malabo Convention, it means the state has no interest even to have those implemented domestically. We have very weak enforcement of data protection laws. I know there are some countries where this has been very forceful. I can say the ODPP in Kenya has really led on trying to push data protection in that regard. I know someone from pointed out that in Uganda, the office here has three people with a budget of $50,000 a year. That's totally underfunding a key agency that's supposed to lead on data protection. So probably that's where now the advocacy needs to go, that we need to have these offices do a lot. But in spite of all this, you still have the challenges of surveillance and the internet shutdowns. We pointed out this during the training. I'm not on Facebook. I've never been a fan of Facebook, so I don't lose sleep for not being it being shut down in Uganda for, I don't know, forever. But it shows you that even when we are trying to provide for forms of getting people into the digital spaces, that we're still having, and yet these are the type of spaces which allow for discussion and engagement. Surveillance now gets worse with AI, because then you have the facial recognition technologies and all that. So those now all bring into question of how do you protect. I know it's supposed to be for crime, but when do you cross the boundary between crime detection to privacy violations? Those are now become big issues. Cross-border issues where continent we're still struggling. I know we have a digital trade protocol to the African Continental Free Trade Area issued last year, but how are we managing data flows and data information? So that needs to be addressed. Those are remaining challenges. And then public awareness. The good thing we're doing these forums, and there's a lot of work done by civil society organizations that are in these spaces, so that needs to continue. Otherwise, people will not know what they are doing is right or wrong. I know we have too many laws, and sometimes we even don't know what the laws are about, so that advocacy needs to go. So we have opportunities. We have the AU data policy framework, there's continental data governance frameworks that are going on within the regional economic communities and the African Continental Free Trade Area. So we need to continue to engage to make sure that they get this right in that regard. So I don't know, can I do the EU? Yeah, so the EU, I know sometimes we say we borrow much from, we follow what others do, but sometimes that's because we tend to have a laid-back approach to some of these things. So someone else is leading elsewhere. It would be interesting to find a time where Africa would lead on something. So we're hoping that time will come. But right now, there is the EU General Data Protection Regulation and then the Artificial Intelligence Act. And while this might seem to be foreign influences or developments, the reality is that we cannot ignore them. If you are, for instance, going to be doing trade with Europe, the regulations that the European Union has developed will inform whatever you are likely to do in terms of trade. Will inform you like of what you want to do as business. And now the good thing is that many Africans have modeled their data protection laws on the GDPR. If you look at a good example, if you go and look at our laws, Kenya, Nigeria, and Zambia, which now, as I said, have made a bit of changes in 2025. They have tried to use the European GDPR as a model. Now, core principles, we can always look at for the principles. They're about law, full and fair processing, consent-based data collection, data minimization, data subject rights in terms of access, and erasure, meaning that at some point you need to address that. Obligations on data controllers and processors, that's big in much of our digital protection laws, and then cross-border data transfer restrictions. So this is developments which are critical. Now, the importance of this is that it has influenced not just the national data protection laws, but also what we are doing on a regional basis. Remember, this is an EU regional-based framework. So the AU data policy framework draws from the international standards, especially the GDPR. The ECOWAS and SADC recognized regional guidelines have also incorporated those GDPR-aligned language and principles. And then the GDPR is accountability principle and data breach notification requirements are increasingly being embedded in our national African legislation. So there's a lot that we can learn. And as I said, there's nothing wrong with borrowing very good practices and then including them, incorporating them in our own systems, maybe even domesticating them in the context of Africa. So there's nothing wrong with that, and I think that's the influence that we are seeing. The influence of the AU AI Act agenda setting is critical. The AI Act has put responsible AI regulation on the radar of African policymakers. So African governments are beginning to discuss risk-based classification of AI systems, bans on harmful AI users, e.g. biometric mass surveillance, and then AI transparency and accountability, bias and discrimination on algorithm decision-making. I know we did this on the first day of the training. What is the AI doing? I always tell people that when you hear algorithms, for some of us who studied in the pre-AI, pre-technology times, we're thinking of the mathematical tables of cosines and sine. Now, all of a sudden, the algorithms or logarithms, which we used to hear of now, are in live form. I was telling in the first day of the training that when I first went to Cambridge to do my master's, I had never heard of anything called applied mathematics. I always thought mathematics is purely with the figures that you see on paper. Now the idea that they are being applied, now you can see what form the application is taking, that you now can create these technologies. Now, I'm particularly keen on how the EU AI actually influence us on harmful uses, especially the biometric mass surveillance. Those of you who are in Uganda, I don't know whether they've begun releasing the new national ID. It's supposed to have a biometric chip. The current ones don't, but it's supposed to have a chip where, just imagine, where you go visit your doctor, where you go to your favorite restaurant, whatever networks you are connected to will be captured on. Because remember, each time you're using, it's registering for anything, you're using that national ID. So now the question is, what's the potential for using those biometrics? Each time you go anywhere, you're putting your fingerprints. So that's the danger. So that's the question is, how does the EU's approach influence our own approach in terms of that? Then the soft law and policy engagements. There's an EU Digital Economy Task Force, and then Smart Africa AI policy dialogues that have incorporated the EU AI Act principles. There is a AU Development Agency, AUDA, NEPAD, is also developing an Africa AI policy framework with input from the EU experts. So there's all this going on, and there are opportunities that arise in terms of policy leapfrogging. What can Africa do from learning from the EU AI Act to develop not only the continental but also the national AI legal frameworks? So those are just the quick lessons and the quick challenges and opportunities to look at AI in those contexts, from Malabo to the EU approaches. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Honoria. And we'll now cross over to Alice. And as I mentioned, Alice has a very impressive track record, inspiring for a lot of women in this room. She is a partner and head of tech and innovation at Katende, Sempebwa, and Company Advocates. For the purposes of where I come from in Kenya, I will just say CATS. Sorry, Alice. She's an award-winning lawyer, most notable for top 5 most influential women in legal tech, recognized by International Legal Tech Association, an innovator, international keynote speaker, author, and thought leader in legal tech sector. She's also ranked by Chambers Global as a leading tech lawyer with 20 years of experience in legal practice, specialized in technology and law, with a keen interest in AI, blockchain, cryptocurrency, fintech, regtech. Wow, Alice. I have never heard of regtech, but cyber law and data protection. And today she's going to give us an impressive overview of AI governance in Africa, looking at the Malabo Convention. There is a growing need to regulate technologies, but to what extent can the Malabo Convention contribute to AI regulation in Africa? Alice, over to you.
Thank you very much. It's a privilege to be here. I'm always very happy to share and learn. But today I think it's a special day for me that I'm sharing a panel with Dr. Honoria. Having
one of these I'm going to hide. My screen don't pop up.
I know from all nooks. Yeah, it definitely it's a privilege, because when you're very young and you're in class, I used to sit very, very close to the table. You're looking at your lecturer as the alpha and the omega, right? And then suddenly, somehow the years go by, and yeah, we are here sharing a panel. So I'm grateful. But also, I always find myself as a dinosaur in this kind of spaces, because most of you are very young. So when you find 45-year-old lawyers, or even when I'm usually like representing clients, my clients are very young. So when they hear about like you're born in the 70s, like, aren't you supposed to be in a retirement home? And I'm like, not yet. But I also really enjoy, so I'm one of those lawyers, really, I actually enjoy using technology. I do remote work, like Nate said, 99%. And everything in my life is literally using technology. I've taken all the advantages. I know all the challenges, the risks that are involved. And I'm also a cybersecurity expert, and I do a lot of work in that area. So despite the fact that I enjoy using a lot of technology, but I'm also into a space of making sure that it's actually safe, all the vulnerabilities that come with using it. So these kind of topics are clearly my, how can I say, pretty much cup of tea. But I like the fact that in this space there, I'm seeing people who are not all, I guess, Gen Zs, so it makes me a bit happy, especially seeing you, Dr. Honoria. I'm not the only dinosaur here. Anyway, yeah, so in relation to the Malabo Convention and the topic today, what we'd say would be like the contribution to AI regulation. That was my question in Africa. I have a caveat, and I think Dr. Honori actually also talked about it. I've been part of many of these discussions, and I feel like so many times we want laws and regulations, so many times. And I don't know if it's just an African thing that we feel like if we don't have a law, nothing will ever work. But then after going through so much to set up the laws, we go back, sit back, implementation, enforcement, 0%. So you wonder, why do we actually go through all these, steps to try to make sure that we have regulations in place, but then we don't enforce them, and we are very non-compliant. Even when we actually have the right laws, we don't want to follow them. Think about it. We have a data protection center, but then how many people, how many actually lawyers or just ordinary citizens are willing actually to go and register themselves? But 10 years ago, we were crying for this, like, you understand. And this is not only actually Uganda. Uganda, of course, is where we're one of the most non-compliant human beings, I think. So my question now is usually, do we need more laws? Or can we actually look at what we already have? So if I'm asked a question, is that, okay, what would the Malabo Convention contribute to AI regulations in Africa? Like you've heard from previous speaker, we've had only 15 countries that have signed it, right? That's a very, very small number out of 53. And even when you look at the countries themselves, I hear Sao Tome, Zambia, like you're just thinking, where are the big, players? The big players who have actually implemented the data protection and cybersecurity regulations have not signed it, have not ratified it. So do we actually need these kind of conventions? Or, because to me, actually, it's a question. There are now 36 countries, I think, which have signed, which have like data protection laws. But most of those have not ratified the convention. Uganda is one of them. Dr. Roy, I told you that youth should kind of come, go up in arms and poke your governments to do something about it. It's really sad because Uganda was quite ahead 10 years ago in terms of the use of actually AI or emerging technologies. Now we are slowly and steadily going at the back. But we have very good laws. And actually the laws, without even the Malabo Convention, Uganda has, of course, a Data Protection Act. You have all these laws that regulate cybersecurity space. So we have beautiful, nice laws, but implementation and enforcement is really an issue. But anyway, so if I'm to just respond directly to the question, what do I think is the contribution of the convention to AI regulation, or what would be AI regulations in Africa? Because currently, no specific country has any. I think indirectly, it contributes to AI regulation because it mainly covers data protection and privacy, which are essentials in, of course, AI training and use. And we all know that use of AI includes heavy use of data, or data dependence. So if you are using AI, it means that definitely you're using a lot of data. And indirectly, you're going to be governed by the data protection laws. So in this regard, I would, if you ask me, the Malabo Convention already takes care of this indirectly. I am also of the view that you don't need specific laws for everything. You understand? For everything, you could come up with specific law on how to deal with slippery like flows. We don't need that we don't need specific laws to operate in a specific space, in a space rather. So if we already have these indirect regulations within the Malabo Convention that govern data, that have set up cybersecurity standards. As you all know, that AI systems are very vulnerable to manipulation and very to all manner of attacks, cyber attacks. So the fact that the Malabo Convention focuses so much on cybersecurity, I feel like it's already indirectly regulating the AI space. So again, we already have something very good, to work with. We don't have to wait for specific laws to do something. Whatever we want to do, we can still operate within the Malabo Convention. The digital trust, or I would say maybe accountability. Again, the Malabo Convention talks about that. It emphasizes on who should be accountable, and who requires every nation or member country to implement or to set up an authority which will be able actually to hold anyone liable who is liable, or to hold anyone accountable for any kind of manipulation or misuse of data for all data subjects. So with those, I generally feel we are good to go. We are not like there's a specific complete vacuum. I feel like with the Malabo Convention and all its provisions, we can still operate and be safe, literally. The only limitations, of course, like I mentioned, there's no AI specific provisions, so you won't find a definition of AI. There won't be a definition of what algorithms and all that, but in there indirectly, because of it talks about bias, transparency. I mean, it goes about it. Those are the main core issues that would affect, or that we usually put in the brackets of AI ethics. So the fact that, I mean, it's not specifically relating to the bias and the transparency doesn't specifically relate to AI, AI regulations, but it relates to data use. And like I mentioned, if you're using AI, you're also using data. So the other limitation would be implementation gap. Again, since 2014, we're in 2025. Only few countries have ratified, only 15, very, very negligible number. The only good thing I think we have is that 36 countries, despite the fact they've not yet signed or ratified the convention, they have data protection and cybersecurity laws or regulations. Yeah, so maybe what I could say, this will be in my next question, but I could talk about it, is I feel like it's kind of outdated. Maybe now it's time that we actually do some kind of amendments. Dr. Honoria talked about it. And yeah, there's a provision for that, because you think about it, but it came into force, or rather, by the time it was signed in 2014, we have moved 100 steps away from that. Do you understand? At that time, it wasn't taking care of all the emerging technologies that we have on the market. So clearly, it needs to be, amended and adjusted to take care of what we are going through pretty much now. We are talking about generative AI, which is one of the things that I also enjoy using, and I know the dangers. You said it scared you, how it identified you, right? I'm actually one of those people who was like, okay, you made a mistake. It's okay, I can give you a chance. Describe me again. So I don't feel alarmed. What really freaks me actually out with all these gadgets and apps is so these kind of conversations. So my phone from this, if I go out, of course, you all know, it will just be giving me anything now to do about Malabo Convention. It will just be talking. You understand? There'll be like pop-ups, topics. Like when you go on Google, it will be, you're just thinking, really? That's so annoying. I wrote a proposal. When was it? On Tuesday. And then I used an AI. I used an AI virtual assistant. So I posted it in there for editing and everything. My good Lord, the way it wrote, it added so many things in the conversation I was having with my colleague. How scary. So, but at the same time, it was in how many seconds? And I'm done. I don't need 20 associates to do all the things I have to do. You understand? It's so empowering. And I'm on the leg of let me be empowered than complaining about it and, you understand, and I guess be left behind. But at the same time, I've told you, I love to be empowered, but also very cautious on the use of it. There's a second question, but I don't know if I could wait for her. Okay. Next. I can take it or wait. Okay. So the other question was about what's the future of Malabo Convention vis-a-vis regional developments. I think Dr. Nori talked about some of the regional developments that definitely have taken place. I want to just focus more on, I say, national AI strategies. I feel like, yeah, some countries definitely are leading. That's Nigeria, Kenya, our neighbor. And I've told you, for me, it's quite absurd because there was a time where we were literally toe-to-toe with who? With Kenya and Nigeria. But now where we are, please, does anyone know our AI strategy as Uganda? Do we even know, I don't know, we have an AI committee, I think, which has, its members, I think, are like 86 years and above.
The wrong demographics.
Exactly. Like we should have young, people like in this room to literally, drive this kind of projects. But I feel like after the appointment of that committee, we are kind of just disappearing, right? Because I'm sure they're also struggling. Remember these things, every single day there is something, right? There's something that is coming up on the market. You have all manner of things, how our work has been, made so much easier. I do remember when I would have like a presentation and then you have to sit down and make, PowerPoints. I use Gamma and I think Gemini. You have, your document, put it in there, and then it also generates for you, what they call it, the pictures or the photos. You understand? It has nice art. Like in 2 seconds, you're just done. There's so many AI agents who can do for you everything you want, really. But then we're here talking about an 86-year-old leading the AI strategy. And I think there's nothing wrong with actually him leading it. But can you have young people actually who can keep up with that? Because definitely, if nature is taking its course on you, it's also good to appreciate that there are actually these young people who are able to, to put out this information. Because age also has some kind of, the gray hair has come with a lot of wisdom, a lot of it, trust me. I can tell you that because I've been practicing law for now 20 years plus. And the things that used to make me run around like a headless chicken, they don't. When you have more gray hair, you're able to read patterns. You can know where this problem is taking you, and you divert, or you can think through so many things. You don't have you have to use your body or your physical energy, you understand? So definitely when you have older people, they can guide and advise, like, okay, you know what, this is actually what we used to do. They are aware of where we came from. They have a lot of background of who we are as a country. So when we're governing, when they are helping with advising these kind of strategies, they can let you know a very simple thing like, what are our ethical standards as Ugandans? Because to come up with an AI, what they call it, ethics regulation, you just don't come up, which ethics are you talking about? As Ugandans, our ethics, we also know them, are very, very sure we are one of the most corrupt human beings. In fact, actually, someone said that we, as Africans, there's something we need to work on before we get into AI ethics. We need to work on our ethics, you understand, the fabric of what literally defines us. Because we can't expect AI, some technology, to do some magic for us when we've actually not worked on ourselves. And we are still struggling in many ways when it comes to just pure general ethics, like pure basic ethics. It has nothing to do with technology. Who we are as a country, you're given responsibility, how you perform as a person. Are you willing? Are you the kind of culture? Do you have a kind of culture which is constantly wanting to bypass regulations, bypass systems? We have to work on those kind of things culturally, because those are things definitely we struggle with before we now empower these kind of technologies. But anyway, yeah, so there are some countries, despite all this, that is not so good in Uganda, that our AI kind of strategy went on the sidelines. There are countries like Egypt, Kenya, very good, Kenya, Ghana, Rwanda, imagine, Rwanda, guys, and South Africa, Nigeria, all these have like national AI strategies. And actually, they're at a very high level where I'm sure very soon they will be kind of, I don't know, implementing, or rather, what they call it, coming up with acts. And as also what Dr. Honoria said, that many countries right now are benchmarking on the EU AI Act, which is okay, perfectly. It's perfectly fine. We've done that as Uganda with the GDPR, and we came up with a very beautiful law, which is very comprehensive and highly respected. So yeah, if we also benchmark on the EU AI Act, that's also good. But anyway, just to let you know that definitely out there, many people, rather some countries are way ahead. Then, of course, as someone mentioned it earlier, the AU Continental AI Strategy is still under development, but we hope it will give more guidance on AI governance, AI innovation and governance. Lastly, sorry. What do I think of the future? I think I would say I've covered that a bit. What could be the future is we could benchmark on the AU Act. I was also asked whether African states should consider a protocol to the Malabo Convention. Yes, it's an absolute yes. We have the mandate, we have the option, why not? I mean, 2014, we are in 2025, so many things have changed. And if it's possible, then definitely we should amend and come up with a protocol that can come up with new rules that are sector specific, because specialization, despite the fact that not having a specific law, you can't be able to operate in a certain space, but having a specialized law also has come with a lot of pros, meaning you have specific definitions of what you're trying to deal with. Because right now, like I said, yes, indirectly AI is governed under the Malabo Convention, but it would be nice if we have protocols which are very sector specific. Then in the protocol, we should also cover the ethical and ethical issues that come with AI. Also deal with the harmonization. I feel like an amendment would deal with the harmonization of all the AI strategies we have now on the continent. Because right now, if Kenya is coming up with its own strategy, Nigeria has its own, South Africa has its own, yet when we're talking about AI or these generally emerging technologies, there's no jurisdiction, meaning right now, whatever, I could use a platform, I usually use, is it Flutterwave? There's a platform, one of these fintechs, they're based in Nigeria, you use the ones in Kenya. So there's no jurisdiction when you're talking about this kind of, technologies. And what does that mean? That we are facing the same threats, same risks. So having a more similar strategies or laws and regulations would be more helpful, as opposed to having things which are completely, rather contradict each member state. yeah, some of the elements I think definitely that should be focused on the cross-border issue of governing data, human rights protection. Right now we are talking about digital rights, provisions of algorithmic impact assessments for the public sector, which uses AI. So there's just so much, definitely, that can be done or taken care of under a protocol, because this will be very, very specific, and it will literally go to take care of, the specific issues that currently, right now, they're in a gray area. Yeah, I think that is it for right now. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Alice, for that overview. And one of the things that you mentioned about whether we need laws, I think yesterday, or was it on Wednesday, Dr. Honoria told us that the DRC has adopted the AFCTA Digital Trade Protocol or Code, but it does not have ICT infrastructure to support implementation of that code. So maybe as a question that we should ask ourselves as Africans is, are we going a step too far in regulating without even thinking of whether we have the infrastructure to support or to have an implementation mechanism of what we are regulating? So I've been notified that we are running short of time, and we have two speakers. Luckily, they are both from the same organization. And I know they have coordinated their presentation really well. We have Miriam and Khadija. Miriam, you have been introduced so well earlier. And one of the things that we forget about the Malabo Convention is that it also addresses cyber threats and cybersecurity in Africa. And we have seen an emergence of cybersecurity and cybercrime laws recently with Zambia. I think it's the latest country with a cybersecurity law. And this has an implication on human rights and directly speaks to what the Malabo Convention is about. So how can we ensure advancement of digital rights continentally while achieving the objectives of the Malabo Convention, especially in the context of cyber threats?
Thank you very much, Sarah. The benefit of also being part of the organizing team is that I know we're not doing very well with time, so I'll be very brief. A couple of things we can do, and you're very right. We are seeing increasingly, quite unfortunate, that a lot of particularly African governments are using existing cybercrime laws to stifle digital rights, and it's a concern. So they're doing something illegal using existing legal mechanisms. And do a couple of things, but I'll just narrow down to two. I think we need very stringent oversight and checks and balances. Because if we say that it is this rogue regime that is propagating or it's using existing cybercrime laws to stifle digital inclusion, and we do away with the rogue regime, in a few years, 10, 15, or the next election, we might find an even worse regime that is using existing cybercrime laws to stifle digital inclusion. So to curb that, and it's a conversation I was having with the participants actually over lunch, is one, I think we just need to have very strong institutions and not entirely focused on one individual, in this case, a president or a leader of a political party, or a few entities that use existing cybercrime laws to stifle digital rights. I will give an example, and in that example, there will be a solution. So to balance what the spirit, entirely the spirit of cybercrime legislation is to ensure there's sanity in the space. But when it is used to stifle digital rights, then we need an oversight or a body that ensures checks and balances. I'll give an example with my country. One of those institutions is, we commonly call it NC4, but in full it's the National Computer and Cybercrimes Coordination Committee. I think it's one of those that we don't look at and we don't talk about it as much as we should, because in my thinking and my experience, I think it's one of the bodies that can actually provide checks and balances. However, this has not been the case. In fact, it has been the complete opposite. It's something that really, really disturbs me to the core. Even the composition of this body that would ordinarily provide that sort of checks and balances leans heavy towards the government of the day. I'll just read you some of the members that comprise the NC4 in my own country. So we have the Principal Secretary, Ministry of Interior, who's male, the Principal Secretary, Ministry of ICT, who's male, the Attorney General, he's male, the Chief of the Kenya Defence Forces, he's male, the Inspector General of Police, he's, at this point we know the song, he's, okay. The Director General of the Intelligence Service, who is? The Director General of Communications Authority, the Director General of Public Prosecution, the Governor of the Central Bank. This one is interesting. I never quite understand their role there. Who is? The Director of the NC4 Secretariat. He is? And there are a few other people. So already you can see how ideally that body that, we can work with the body to provide that sort of checks and balances. First of all, you can already see the gender, and there's nothing wrong with men. We work with men all the time. But you can't tell me that issues around oversight on cybersecurity can only be dealt with a particular gender. So that in and of itself is very problematic. But also, look at the composition. It's very militarized. It's very police heavy. It's very Ministry of Interior. In fact, if they just walked into the room, I would be the first one to run out. I am not doing anything wrong. I am not a criminal, but you can just look at the composition. I honestly look forward to a time where such institutions that would ideally provide a bit of oversight and balance would have even members of the Human Rights Commission, so that we can have a human rights lens to ensure that there's a bit of oversight. So I'd say how to balance is ensure that we have very strong institutions that provide checks and balances. That is just one of them. Of course, we have other independent commissions that can provide checks and balances, but also of importance and value to this conversation, because I know 80-90% of the room is lawyers or people in that field. I think there's also an opportunity for us to set precedents and to set standards and to use existing institutions like courts and regional bodies. After this panel, I think we'll be listening from folks from the African Commission. And I think one of the ways we can go around the bad behavior that we've been seeing is through strategic litigation, which at Paradigm Initiative we do a lot of. And we spoke about it the entire afternoon yesterday with the participants. And so I think this can be a tool to push back against overbroad cybersecurity laws and wording, things such as annoyance. Those are things you can go to court and challenge and say, in as much as it is provided for within a certain cybercrime law, then what does it exactly mean? So that we can avoid some of those things. And through we've seen a few courts that have been quite progressive in either allowing us to understand what this vague wording actually means, and I'd want to encourage all of us to keep doing that, so that we can stop this entire bad behavior. So I would just, because of time, I would narrow down to that. I think we need to really rethink what oversight and checks and balances mean, because these laws are very, very important. We need sanity in the sector, but then we are seeing increasingly them being used as tools for oppression. So we need a bit of checks and balances, and I do not think the checks and balances can be provided by the executive. So we need independence, and we need to continuously resource both in human resource and also financially, that these institutions are independent and they can do the work that they are mandated to do. And hopefully they can be less, leaning towards one gender and less scary. Fewer police, more human rights people. If they invite me to sit, I'd be happy to sit. I do not currently identify as a dinosaur like Alice, but maybe in a few years. But a few of us have a bit of experience, yeah, and we are willing to provide that sort of support. So, Sarah, I would say those two things in the interest of time.
Thank you so much, Miriam, for that. But I highly doubt you will run. As I mentioned, you are a pro-protester in Kenya, well known for hitting the streets every time. So, yeah, we will count on that, your confidence. And just to mention, recently the UN passed the UN Convention Against Cybercrime last year. And it's interesting to see how that will intersect with what's happening in African countries. Now that a lot of African countries are going for elections, we will see a lot of cybercrime laws and a lot of litigation. Hopefully, Paradigm, you have enough money to support the different countries, starting with Uganda.
Give me the cases.
Yeah, hopefully you have the money for that. Now, we will move to Khadija, who is joining us online. Khadija, can you hear us?
Loud and clear.
Great. Khadija is a senior program officer at Paradigm Initiative. She's joining us from Nigeria because of visa issues. And like Miriam said, we need to discuss why we have visa issues in Africa. But she will be giving us the perspective from civil society. I understand most of us here are lawyers, but we are partly civil society, and we want to give you our views so that when we are hitting the streets to fight, you fight alongside us. So Khadija, over to you on the role of civil society organizations in monitoring the implementation of the Malabo Convention.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Hello, everyone. Happy good morning to you. Well, when it comes to civil society organizations, we have played a very critical but challenging role in monitoring the implementation of the Malabo Convention. Even though, like most of the speakers here have said, both the ratification and implementation have been very slow. So one of the biggest ways has generally been advocacy for the ratification. You would find that civil society organizations have lobbied governments to ratify the Malabo Convention, highlighting its importance for safeguarding digital rights, privacy, cybersecurity. You would find that organizations like mine, Paradigm Initiative, CIPESA, Access Now, that I know of, have run campaigns and hosted forums to raise awareness on the convention's benefits and urge ratification. You've also found that there have been a lot of policy briefs that have been published to advise policymakers. We've seen reports, we've seen position papers just to simplify the convention's provisions and build more public and legislative support. We've also seen, of course, the monitoring of the progress that has happened with the convention and an attempt to hold governments accountable. When you go on Google to check, okay, how many countries have ratified, most of the information you would find have been published by civil society organizations, trying to, provide quick and easy information for everyone who needs it, but also encourage other governments to adopt as well. We're seeing things like scorecards on the implementation status across different countries. This helps to provide a lot of pressure on governments who have committed to, let's call it digital rights, but are lagging behind in the legal harmonization. We've also seen a lot of capacity building. Some of what has happened during the forum in the past week, civil society organizations are educating each other to know how to carry on the advocacy, but also educating the public, educating various stakeholders, from the media to lawmakers and even the private sector, on the convention's content, specifically sections on, data protection, to help sometimes prepare these various stakeholders better for if and when their countries do ratify. So we were also seeing, and that is something that a lot of the speakers have discussed as well, critiquing existing national cyber laws and telling them there are other options. There are other options that are available. So civil society organizations are very involved in the review and critiquing of domestic laws that have been enacted, sometimes under the guise of implementing the Malabo Convention, especially where these laws are undermining human rights. And most times they are, right? I think it was discussed yesterday or the day before that about how most governments understand one singular provision in their cyber legislation, which is about cyber harassment and nothing more. What else? I guess ultimately advocating for human rights respecting implementation and aligning the national laws with the spirit of the convention, even if not the text in itself. And I just also wanted to end with highlighting some of the challenges that have been faced by civil society organizations, which is ultimately the lack of political will by governments to ratify or implement. There's also limited access to official African Union implementation and monitoring mechanisms, and of course, as has been highlighted by everyone, digital repression that just keeps coming up. We're seeing that there's been a lot of resistance when it comes to advocacy around surveillance or data protection. So many countries don't have data protection laws, as it were. So I think, that's about covers what comes to mind immediately.
Thank you so much, Khadija, joining us from Nigeria. Now, we are at the end of the panel session, but we have 2 minutes for just 2 questions, brief questions, not comments, if there are any from the audience. If not, we will close it here and invite the next panel. That will be very interesting because we have the special rapporteur from the African Commission on Human and People's Rights who will be joining us online, and a very good panel in person. So just 2 questions. Yes, I see one there. And yeah, can you have the mics, please? Okay, maybe Khadija will not hear us online, but you can just speak up. Yeah.
Thank you so much. I don't know if you can hear me. I am one of the co-founders for Contemporary Initiative. Okay. I'm very interested when it comes to law and tech, especially as a woman in a field that is dominated by men. Anyway, my question goes towards the localization of a lot of these conventions. What we are seeing, especially in our countries, is we do a copy and paste without any effort to localize, which then makes it difficult to implement. Yes? So my question is, how can we better localize the different conventions, especially the Malabo Convention? We already have our data protection laws, yes, but we are also seeing difficulty in implementation, especially since technically they were built for the EU since we benchmarked the EU's GDPR. And this has caused a bit of an issue when it comes to implementation, especially towards big tech. They're the ones who collect most of our data, yet somehow we cannot implement our data protection laws onto them. Yes, I am pretty sure there is a current ongoing case against Google, yeah, for its inability to, register with the PDPO. Yes, and for me, my issue would be localization. How can we foster or encourage localization of these conventions? And my second question would go towards, since it is the East African AI Forum, how to foster a united front. Uganda on its own might not be able to implement its data protection laws. But what if East Africa as a whole was to implement a data protection law as East Africa, not as Uganda? Don't you think we would stand a better chance of implementing our laws? To look at it in that perspective, I feel like is better, because when we're talking about East Africa, we need to also understand the power that is behind collaboration. So for me, those are my questions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Yasmin. I'll direct the first question to Alice, the second one to Doctor, but we'll take the last question and then have all of them answered.
Thank you for this opportunity. I'm called Tolit Charles Atia. My background is research in governance and security studies. Dr. Honoria, I would like to invite you to this thinking that at the moment in Africa, we are standing on the brink of monumental shifts due to one, the fast-paced changing digitization phenomena. There is also, in terms of global governance, security, global rebalancing or repositioning. A case in point is Trump's current stance. We are seeing the regrouping in NATO and the demographic changes. And the esteemed, powerful ladies that have made a good presentation here. I would want to also invite you to this thinking that probably we need to begin to move to a more anticipatory policy approach. Anticipatory policy approach. You have already hinted on the fact around the delay of Malabo and the impact of that delay and all this. So, thankfully, I'll just say in one statement that I think we have overemphasized or put our energies around the hardware. I agree with Dr. Noria when you say probably we have just all the necessary laws we need. But for me, I think where the tarmac, the wheels are not hitting the tarmac, is that we're paying very little attention in terms of interrogating strategies, policy strategies. We're presented with policies, but what is in these strategies? What is in the strategy? What are the issues around the commitment to investment, which really leads to political attitudes? And I think that is where we need to put a bit of attention. I don't know whether you agree with me on that or not. Thank you.
Thank you, Tolit. So, Alice, just very briefly, and then Dr. Honoria, and we'll close the panel.
if we stop being lazy and come up with our own laws before, or taking a lead, as what Dr. Honoria said, we always follow, right? But we can also take a lead. And when you take a lead, you actually look inward and say, what do we need? You can come up, most of these actually regulations we copy and paste, they are too bulky for us even to process. And why? Because culturally, in the Western world, that is how they deal with things. They want to, they provide for every scenario, every little scenario. Yet for us culturally, it's a very similar culture to like Arabs. Like for example, how we do carry out contracts, right? We usually, I can give you my word, right? And your friend recommended me. We can easily have a contract based on trusting each other. Very similar, by the way, to also the Middle East. But then you're not going to convince any English person that we shook hands and we accepted, and now we don't have to go through all this arbitration, procedures and proceedings. It's a struggle because, like I've told you, we are trying to benchmark. Yet culturally, our belief system, customs say something completely different. So if we stand up and try to lead, then we won't be in this scenario. But what do we do now in this kind of scenario to localize? It's usually done actually, because passing a law, it's not really of course there is a copy and paste, yes, but the laws go through different steps, so by the time it's actually assented to and all that, and that's usually they actually send it to ULS, Uganda Law Society, they send it to different, stakeholders, a bill, for example, so that you can give your input. But many times people actually don't give their inputs. So usually Parliament is also left with a law, they just don't know much about it. They're usually committees. All these efforts are there, trust me. But because culturally we also, you understand, we have to accept the laissez-faire attitude we have towards things. Until things start biting us, that's when we are like, oh my God, what happened? How did this law pass and all that? But all these stages, they're gone through, and we go through them actually. But people are we are very laid back. We have a very laid back attitude, and I'll give a very good example why actually it's very important to localize these laws. When it comes to the issue of privacy, I do remember one time I had a case on some people came to our offices and they were complaining about, is it Facebook or something, Jumia, one of these online platforms, about sharing like a photo, like a wedding photo for someone, right? Now, in the EU, like what is privacy in the Western world, right? It's like, how dare you share my wedding photo? Here in Uganda, people can be so happy with themselves. Like, okay, my wedding photos can go. In the Western world, someone can take you on, like, you understand, with vengeance, and you're like, it was just a wedding photo, right? So what is the definition of privacy? It could be you shared my, traditional wedding photos, and it's okay. Do you understand? It could have been by mistake, or you wanted it. You could have even had, like, we don't feel like someone had a bad intention of sharing certain things, you understand, about very, very private things actually about us. But then, and also, we don't usually insist, and the way actually also we solve disputes is very, very different. It's easy for us to say, oh, maybe your elders can take on this kind of thing. And it's a very simple thing, how we solve disputes. Something has happened in case of like privacy, breach of data and all that. Our DNA resonates to alternative dispute resolution, you understand? How do we settle this amicably? But then we're in a system where it's like, not plaint, WSD. You understand? You waste a lot of time doing all these things. First, the laws and whatever, everything you litigate is in a foreign language, right? So it even takes us a long time to interpret and understand this. We are constantly struggling with our mother tongues to understand what actually we are going to, the language even we should use in court. But anyway, it's a very big problem, very, very giant problem. But I feel like, where should we start from? We do our own things. Stop being, chasing other people and saying, what have you got there? Let me see. Okay, let me also go back and do this. No, we can actually have an act with like 2 pages. But then, trust me, if we had an act with 2 pages, Ugandans will go up in arms. Now look, our parliament, how could they have a thing of 2 pages? In the EU, they have a whole... Now when you bring them the EU thing, we can't even comprehend it at all. Or we are struggling. So there's a practical whatever, and also there could also be genuinely steps. And I feel like those steps are, other my colleagues can share. I feel like those steps actually are taken in terms of trying to actually localize our laws at the bill stage. Yeah.
Thank you, Alice. Dr. Honoria, just a few minutes.
Yes, thank you. And yeah, localization is very important. And again, the question is, what is the local context? Sometimes we forget, we don't even appreciate it ourselves. But that is a very interesting observation. So that just look at it in the context. I'm just diverting a bit. Look at it in the context of creatives, the creative industry. We have not really built on that, and yet that's now the most inclusive way of digital rights. The way we do our crafts, we take everything that's African into that space. That would be one form of localization. So let's just think about it that way. Now, in terms of the East African approach, could we have an East African approach? I think EAC is lagging behind because you can see already ECOWAS has a supplementary act on data protection, SADC has a model law. Now, if we're looking at AI, none of them has AI yet, but the idea being that we could probably be something that the East African community should be thinking about. I don't know whether this is something on the radar of the Council of Ministers or the heads of summit, but it's something they need to be looking at. But beyond that, it also speaks to the fact that when you look at the role of digital aspects to trade, we're supposed to have a payment system for Africa. We're supposed to have a system where we allow ease of trading within Africa, and we're not paying attention to that. We have a digital trade protocol with several annexes. So those are things where, again, we seem to be getting ahead of ourselves, which is not bad. But then we need to put in place the systems. We need to put in place the necessary procedure and then when you have the systems, do they have the necessary checks and balances to ensure that that data information is not abused? Just talking about the fast-paced nature of AI, generative AI, the so-called learning AI. Each time you type in anything, it's picking up this information, and it's like it's having a life of its own. You know, remember how you have those things in science where you put one cell organism and it multiplies over time. So that's what AI sounds like. And the reality is that we probably need to be thinking in a much more progressive manner. We may not, again, that's what I'm saying, that sometimes having a legal framework that is forward-thinking is not bad, as long as you make sure that you put in place then the systems that then are anticipated by that law. I like the way Namibia legislates. I'm just giving you a sort of an insight of what they do. Namibia can pass a law in 2025, but that law will not come into effect even for the next 15 years. They know we need to legislate on this. So they'll put in a law, then they'll build the systems, they'll build the institution. If there are changes during that time, they're amending that same law. They have not commenced it. They are still not, their law has not commenced. They even passed regulations. But at the time when they have all the systems, the institutions, then they activate the law, they commence the law. This is a country of 2.8 million people. But they are thinking that we need to have a law. We're not going to wait until we have the system. So I think that there's nothing wrong with having a legal frameworks, then make sure that you have the system. I think what we're often doing is that we're borrowing from EU, which has the more advanced systems, and then not bad, but then we need to see that we then duplicate those systems or even do better in terms of those systems. Someone mentioned Trump. Now, the Trump era shows you the pitfalls of AI. We talked about surveillance and the abuse of surveillance. Now you can imagine now you want to go and study in the US graduate program, MALLM. They're saying they're going to review your social media activity. Whether it, I don't know what that means, whether it's a Facebook and see whether you have the right thinking of being in America. Now that's bias, that's discrimination and all those things. Now that's how you abuse the technology. These are supposed to be informative. And the bit about these spaces, the digital spaces, is then it's the freedom of expression, the ability to criticize. And criticism shouldn't be that Africa's dictators and Europe and the Americans have a more democratic government, they don't abuse rights and all. That's not what it's supposed to be about. Now you're using surveillance for that purpose. So there's always that danger. Finally, I just want to point out that we need to build the systems. I think that's for me the parting point here, that we need the systems to be in place. If it involves actually putting in the digital infrastructure, the ICT infrastructure, that needs to be done. So that when you're, for instance, doing the compliance, that if you are saying there must be reporting, there must be a system to capture those reports. We're moving into an AI age, but I keep wondering, I used to wonder when I complained to my bank that I want to set up a business name account. Why do you want me to carry papers? Why do you want me to go and fill physical forms? So they are telling you they want you to do these things, but they are not putting in they are not putting in the hard work to pro. For personal account, they say I can get online, but for business, I need to go to URSB, do all these things, bring all those papers. I say, but I can have them. URSB has sent them to be in digital form. Why don't I also just forward them to you? And then they tell me in some banks, they are very notorious, that the certified copy, go and print it in color so that they can see the the digital stamp in color. So there are so many things we need to do, but that's just what we as the civil society, the legal fraternity and all that need to do to make sure that once these laws are in place, then we're also bring this information to our clients, bring them to the public, the literacy. The digital literacy needs to go on. I think those are my parting notes.
Thank you. Just 10 seconds for Miriam and then we wrap up.
Thank you very much. There was a question on implementation. So as has been mentioned here, only 15 have ratified. Advocates, civil society organizations in the room, our work is cut out for all of us. I know there are 21 that have signed, countries that have signed, but signing is not ratifying. So just pushing and advocating that more countries ratify. In East Africa, I think it's only in Rwanda. Only Rwanda has ratified the convention. So the rest of us need to have coffee with our ministers and everyone to ensure that the needful is done. I think that was the only question that I wanted to. There was another one, but I've forgotten. Because of time, I'll finish there. Thank you very much, Sandra.
Thank you. A round of applause, please, to the panelists, and thank you for being such an attentive audience. I will now invite Eddie for the next session. In the meantime, we can have a photo session with the panelists. Thank you so much.
Okay, good afternoon. Am I allowed to join? No, it's okay. Okay, so this next session is on advancing digital rights through African Commission resolutions 620, 630, and 631. It is a pleasure to introduce the next panel. And for the next 1 hour, we'll explore how these three key resolutions adopted by the African Commission on Human and People's Rights are reshaping our understanding of data access, content moderation, and public interest media in an increasingly digital world. When this forum was first launched, our intention was not just talk about AI governance in the abstract, but to anchor it in the lived realities of African people, how we access services, express ourselves, and engage with our governments. These resolutions do exactly that. This conversation we are going to have is going to be led by Media Monitoring Africa, Africa Alliance for Access to Data, SOS, and CIPESA. To guide us through this session, we'll begin with an address from the Commissioner, Ourveena, the Special Rapporteur on Freedom of Expression and Access to Information in Africa, who will speak on the relevance of these resolutions. So then we'll hear insights from the panelists. Ladies and gentlemen, do we have the Special Rapporteur online? I just want to confirm. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome Uyanda.
Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear and see me. Am I audible?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. My name is Uyanda Siotula from SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition. I just want to say that I'm just still checking with my colleagues to get them to also join on this platform if they are not already here. And I'll just also follow up on the special rapporteur in the meantime. Thank you.
Let's give it up for Juliet to join us.
I expect a bigger round of applause. Thank you. Okay, good afternoon, everybody. And congratulations to the team that have done the training over the past 2 days. It has been a very insightful period of time that we have witnessed the various participants go through. Congratulations on the certificates awarded. And for those who will be going on to participate in the media policy workshop program. So congratulations on that. You didn't introduce? Yes, you can go. Okay. So this afternoon, we are here to talk about a series of resolutions that emerged between November last year and March this year. We were expecting to have the Special Rapporteur on Freedom and on Access to Information join us, but unfortunately she is not able to at current point. We'll keep pinging her in that regard. But nonetheless, we will keep the conversation going as we look forward to sharing a couple of insights on these resolutions that are key at this point in time for us as a continent, for us as lawyers, for us as people working in the media, and as civil society. these resolutions that we had hoped we'd get a bit of insight from through the special rapporteur are the resolution on promoting and harnessing data access as a tool for advancing human rights and sustainable development in the digital age. That is Resolution 620, as well as the resolution on working towards the assessment of public interest content in the digital era and developing guidelines to ensure that public interest elements are present in all platforms working in Africa. And that would be Resolution 631. And the last resolution we're going to be looking into is a resolution on developing guidelines to assist states monitor technology companies to respect their duty to maintain information integrity through independent fact-checking. So those are the three areas of interest that we're going to be focusing on this afternoon. My name is Juliet Namfuka. I work with the Collaboration and International ICT Policy for East and Southern Africa, otherwise known as CIPESA, and we are proud to be associated with this discussion. Joining us today will also be Mabel, who will briefly introduce herself, and Uyanda, who is joining us from SOS out in South Africa. Mabel, kindly introduce yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mabel Omron, and I work with Threats. I work with Threats, which is a non-profit pro-democracy tech research lab, and I work as a researcher with Threats. And I apologize, I'm a bit nervous. So be kind.
There is absolutely no need to be nervous. We're here in the company of friends. So once again, welcome to this discussion. It is the tail end discussion following some very insightful debates and content over the last couple of days and over this morning. So we will be brief in our presentations, but ultimately we invite you to engage with these resolutions as we go along. We're going to open this conversation to people outside of the legal fraternity as well, because we need to get content, feedback, and reactions from people who are interested in these developments, interested in these spaces, but may not necessarily have the legalese to navigate, but have the will and determination. So we are keen to go along with that. Just a quick check-in. Uyanda, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Fantastic. So that makes the three of us. So a bit of genesis on how we got here today. Back in April, we joined the African Alliance for Access to Data, Media Monitoring Africa, and SOS in the launch of these resolutions in Lusaka as part of the Digital Rights and Inclusion Forum hosted by DRIF. The commitment that was made there was to get these resolutions into more spaces, spoken by more people, but also to get more feedback to them, including in the development of various guidelines. So we're excited to be in this space today and seeing that ambition come alive with all of us here gathered today. And not just here, but beyond, we look forward to the contributions that we hope you'll make to some of these resolutions going forward. So without going too deep into some of these, I'd like to invite Mabel to talk to us about Resolution 620. 630, my apologies. And Mabel, that's a resolution on developing guidelines to assist states monitor technology companies in respect of their duty to maintain information integrity through independent fact-checking. So these resolutions are products of the ACHPR, and we're excited to be a part of these discussions. But handing over to you, Mabel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We are excited to be part of this conversation. So we are in a digital era. Technology platforms are taking over, but most especially we look at social media, places like Facebook, TikTok, Twitter. These have become primary spaces for millions of people across the world to access information. just a few statistics here and there. About 190 million Africans on TikTok, 290 million on Facebook alone, and about 200 million who use WhatsApp. That's a very, very big number. So these platforms that are not headquartered in Africa usually hold immense power over what we see and what we hear. And like Uncle Ben said, for those of us who watch Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. Unfortunately, this responsibility has been misused in one way or the other. So Resolution 630 recognizes this responsibility, and it calls for clear guidelines to help African states monitor technology companies and ensure they maintain information integrity, which means that basically that the information that is shared on these platforms is accurate, trustworthy, and not harmful, which is something that we have seen happen. As a researcher, I have seen firsthand the devastating impact of false information on elections. For example, we've seen how political parties use social media to spread disinformation about their opponents. When it comes to public health, I think we all remember the misinformation surrounding COVID-19 and also the mpox. When it comes to social cohesion, we've also seen how coups have fueled disinfo and misinfo campaigns. For example, in Niger, where certain group, I think called the Wagner Group, was part of leading those efforts. So all this false news on these social platforms undermine our democratic processes. However, they're also fueled by the algorithms, because the more hateful something is, the more clickbait worthy it is, the more it gets spread faster than what actual news is. And it also comes on the heels of Facebook and Twitter removing their fact checkers, and Facebook also removing fact checkers and bringing in community notes. Community notes are good in their own way. However, they also create a whole set of problems, because they have biases. We all inherently as human beings have biases. So we want, with this resolution, the resolution 630, it calls for content moderation, which is content moderation by humans, especially within the African context. So much content that is on African Twitter or African social media sometimes gets past content moderation, because we do not have that, because the content moderators do not have the African context, the languages that we use. Even the way that we speak English sometimes is different to the way that they do, that the global majority might speak English. Certain meanings are different to the way that we speak. So yes, content moderation. Yes, the key provisions for Resolution 630 are the development of guidelines that will help the states within the African Union monitor, that will help the states monitor platform performance effectively, so that we don't have instances where misinformation and disinformation is spread faster than actual truth. It also calls for the adoption of independent fact-checking mechanisms, because sometimes the platforms have its profit over good for them, and profit is usually negative information that gets spread very fast. So Yeah, I believe it's a landmark step towards creating a safer and more truthful digital environment in Africa. And it also, this resolution 630, acknowledges the power of technology that the companies wield. And we just, resolution 630 asks that that we hold that power in check, and we hold those companies responsible for some of the harm that they may cause with their algorithmic biases. I'm sorry. Yes.
Thank you very much, Mabel, for that abbreviated insight on Resolution 630, which once again is the resolution on developing guidelines to assist states monitor technology companies in respect to their duty to maintain information integrity through independent fact-checking. Mabel comes from a background of fact-checking. They're doing some very fascinating work. And as she has pointed out, in the context of Africa, fact-checking is necessary. We're living in a content where we sometimes confuse the difference between L's and R's, and it, it gets lost in some of these tools, sometimes with dire consequences. But we do appreciate how we speak, how we write, but that appreciation means that some of our ways of being in online spaces ends up being very coded. Coded threats, coded attacks, which sometimes get overlooked by some of these platforms. So yes, there is a major call, major need for information integrity to be prioritized in the African context. We'll swiftly move on to Oyanda, who will talk to us about Resolution 631. Again, that's the resolution working towards the assessment of public interest content and developing guidelines to ensure public element for all platforms operating in Africa. Oyanda, would invite you to the screen and give us a bit of a background on what Resolution 620 is all about. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for this opportunity. My name is Uyanda Siotula. I am the National Coordinator of the SOS Support Public Broadcasting Coalition. We are an organization that is based in South Africa, and what we do essentially is advocate for an effective public broadcaster in our country. And our work has taken a slight, turn, given the digital transformation, and which also led to us participating in this work and being the implementing organization for Resolution 631, which essentially looks at universal access to public service content in Africa. So the resolution works towards the assessment of public interest content in the digital era, because obviously we know that public service content, as we know, it has transformed in the digital era. And the element of entertainment as well has also transformed. When we talk about broadly about content, when people are, watching television, they used to watch, family shows, but now content has revolved. We now have, podcasts, and that's like a new element that has been brought by, the digital era. So this particular, resolution, works towards developing public service, assessing what public service content is in the digital era, and therefore developing guidelines to ensure a public, interest element on all platforms in operating in Africa. So I also just want to touch on the mandate of the Special Rapporteur, which is to consult African role players with an interest in broadcasting, freedom of expression, media freedom, digital rights, access to information, policy and lawmaking, individuals, because the idea is to consult broadly, with various stakeholders, and, some might not necessarily be within, these particular fields, but might have an interest and an important contribution to this particular work. So we do invite, everyone, to actually participate in these guidelines. So the second aspect of that mandate is to, develop guidelines for member states to assist them in developing a future-focused policy framework for universal access to public service content in Africa. And this particular work really comes from the idea that traditionally we used to have public service media playing this role. We know how radio and television has actually, been essential in providing access to information across Africa. However, given the digital transformation, that role, we are particularly, trying to understand with this resolution that is that role really, supposed to be limited only to traditional broadcasters, or is it time to democratize the production of public service content to allow more actors, more players, content creators, influencers that are actually prominent in the digital, spaces to also create public service content and distribute it through digital means, so that it is universally accessible and across all platforms in Africa. Because also what you see, is the fact that, with myths and disinformation, spreading, in all these platforms, so what we're doing is we're saying this is the alternative content that could then replace, the harmful content that we see on these social media platforms. However, it's very important to also note that this particular resolution does not aim to replace, public media, public service media, because that plays a critical role, and it has been for years in our continent. But it is to now say what are the other means of producing and accessing content in the digital age, because also we need to be mindful of the fact that universal access to information has changed drastically with the digital transformation, because that universality used to be carried by public broadcasters, which do not also have a huge digital footprint. And what we see on the digital platforms is independent producers that actually already have a following. So the idea is to look at how we can then utilize those prominent content creators on these platforms, to incentivize them or to encourage them to produce public service content. That could then be accessible by a much more diverse audience. So essentially, we're looking at a system where we are now leapfrogging to public service content as another means of, making sure that content or information rather is universally accessible. So if we're looking at traditional broadcasting versus the digital age, we know that traditional broadcasters, all have got a special purpose. They do, serve our, respective audiences in our countries, with, local information, local languages. They have a mandate to educate and entertain, especially if, in that particular country, there is a public broadcaster. So they also, have an element of entertainment, which is quite important. And they're also universally accessible and relevant to the broader nation. However, the biggest issue is that the production and the distribution means are quite centralized. And what you see with the digital era is quite different, because you've got, quite an open space for anyone to produce and create content, and for anyone to actually have access to that particular content. So that's what, we're trying to unpack and understand with this resolution. And we really would love to get your input to really understand what some of your ideas are to make to make public service content universally accessible in this particular, digital age. And, so that's essentially what we mean by democratizing public service content. And I just lastly want to touch on, I think, just 4 key issues that I want us to focus on as we unpack and debate this issue. So one is the core principles that should inform public service content. So what are those principles that we should be looking at, that inform public service content? Do we need a criteria that's going to help us understand what public service content actually is in the digital age? And how do we then create, a conducive environment for this democratization that we're speaking about? Should we be looking at how, to make data more accessible, lowering costs? Should we be looking at, making it more accessible through Wi-Fi hotspots? Should we be, exploring zero rating? Should we be looking at, mass carry obligations for platforms? And so what are some of the mechanisms that, we can implement to make, this environment more conducive to democratize public service content? And the other one that I want us to look at is, governance changes that are needed, that can get private owned, entities. It could be broadcasters. Let's say, for instance, private owned broadcasters that already, produce public service content to a certain extent. How do we get them to increase the conscience, of that content? And how do we get, private owned distributors to foster and promote that particular content? So do we need to be changing our laws, our legislations and policies to accommodate this, changing, means of access to information? And the last one really is, what incentives should we be looking at? Do we need to be thinking about incentivizing these new, content creators that we now want to encourage to produce, public service content? And, what categories of content producers are actually, should actually be legible and considered for those, incentives? And does government have a role to play in those incentive schemes? Is this the role of government? So those are some of the things that I want us to be thinking about in the meantime. And thank you, Juliet. I'll hand back to you.
Thank you very much, Uyanda, for that very hearty call to engage with the public interest content. We are in a room that is dominated by lawyers. So Uyanda, perhaps you could give an example, a current example of how public interest content serves the broader public in the context of South Africa, for example.
So, I think the perfect example, given that we're coming out of an election year, would be, information that's related to elections, information that serves to inform and educate the public. So that is what we would consider public, interest content. People needing to know which political parties are actually, which political parties they need to be voting for, what is in their manifestos, what are the promises, making an informed decision in terms of, which political party to eventually vote for based on information that has been provided by a media source, be it a public broadcaster, be it an independent producer of, public interest content. So that's the type of content that we're talking about that is essential for an individual living within a particular state to make an informed decision about their lives. And this, I'm making an example about a political sector, but it also, expands to social issues, it expands to economic issues, any information that empowers an individual to make an informed decision, I would say.
Thank you very much for that, Uyanda. It ties very well with what Mabel has presented about information integrity. There's a need for public interest content to be more readily available, more readily accessible to address some of the concerns that we're having with information integrity in the online spaces in the continent. But you also raise other issues around access and affordability. Should public interest information, one of the strategies employed, should it be public Wi-Fi? What does that mean for data protection? What does that mean for ease of access? How much information should one part with in order to access public Wi-Fi? Where this public Wi-Fi spots. So it's part of a broader discussion that we need to be thinking about as we make our contributions to these resolutions. Once again, a call to provide some insights that can help shape the guidelines that we'd like to hand back to the Special Rapporteur on some of these issues. So mine is to talk about Resolution 620. But before I get there, I would like to talk about, just briefly, a very interesting development that happened no more than 2 weeks ago. And that was the ruling of a case between a company called, it has eluded me, Anthropic and Butts. Are you familiar with the case?
I'm familiar with Anthropic.
You're familiar with Anthropic. How many of us are familiar with Anthropic? Okay, we have one person. How many of us are familiar with Cloud AI? Claude AI. Again, one person. Two. Perhaps we could get let's have you right here. No? Okay, fine. We'll have the person out at the back. Do we have a roving microphone? They could perhaps tell us what Anthropic is all about.
Anthropic is just like OpenAI, and they are the people that develop the cloud platform. I guess the decision is about fair use, the recent decision.
Can you give a bit more context to the decision that has been reached in that particular case? Sorry? Not at the moment. Okay, so in my understanding of this, I'm not a lawyer, disclaimer. There's a case between Claude and an entity or individual called Butts. And the crux of it is that Anthropic went and collected data scraped data rather, off of at least 7 million books, some with copyright, some without. But at least that part of the ruling indicated that they were in the wrong. Am I right? Yes. So while there's infringement on copyright, do we have copyright specialists here in the room? No? Okay, so I'll claim to be the copyright specialist for the moment. I'll have my moment in the sun now. So there was an infringement on copyright law, at least in the US, with the scraping of all this content off of these books. So while the ruling found it as okay, that it argued that this was fair use, what does it actually mean for us in the global south, where we are struggling with basic copyright of, look at the music industry in Uganda, I guess in Africa. Look at the publishing industry. How many book imitations are sold on the corner, on the street sides? So these are issues that are very real in our reality. And now we have this extra layer of AI data extraction, which is essentially what it is. While it may be for fair use, we still have an undercurrent of the African narrative being skewed in some of the content that is collected, considering that we still have a very oral tradition. We still have, like has been pointed out, issues around language. Our publishing sector is not the biggest, so just part of the African story will be translated into online platforms. I'm simplifying this greatly. But ultimately, we are looking at value extraction of African data, the mining of local knowledge, and its reshaping and repackaging by external actors with no clear indication of what it will mean for us in its return. So ultimately, this is a dynamic of power and participation when it comes to AI tool development, AI outputs, how much of us as Africans are actually embedded in some of the tools they developed. So this, I'm sure, was part of the conversation and debates that took place over the last couple of days. So it brings back issues of data privacy, access to information, as has been pointed out. What does this mean for public media, public interest media? So there are very many nuances that we can call upon when trying to discuss about AI and data in the African context. And this brings me to Resolution 620, which is a resolution on promoting and harnessing data access as a tool for advancing human rights and sustainable development. So one of the key things about this resolution that stands out for me is that we need data to do a lot of the work that we try to pursue these days. We have seen developments where we've been locked out of the data required for us to do research, for example, for us to make meaningful contributions to AI developments, but also just generally tech developments, including in the areas of disinformation, tech-facilitated violence, but also content takedowns requested by states and large corporations. So access to data is a fundamental part of our participation in the AI ecosystem, but also as a tool for sustainable development. We also have the issue around the misuse and abuse of data, as I have slightly alluded to in the case of Anthropic, where we're seeing a slightly, sorry, the ceiling is leaking, but a slightly disproportionate level in terms of access to information, the exploitation or the harvesting of data from the continent, and the partial return of that data back to the continent. So very interesting dynamics yet again. So what this resolution calls is that there needs to be ethical principles in data collection and usage, and in ensuring that data initiatives align with international human rights standards. In this particular case, an alignment with US standards, but what does that mean in the case of the African context? But we also have an issue around data access for marginalized and vulnerable communities. We see this in, as has been pointed out by Uyanda, in public interest content, how much of that information is digitally accessible in areas and in circumstances where the cost of data is not particularly friendly, or the quality of access is not particularly friendly. So we have those issues around equitable access to data for marginalized and vulnerable communities. Some of the work that we have done at CIPESA includes making access to online information accessible to persons with disabilities. What does that mean when it comes to equitable data access? So these are some of the issues that Resolution 620 is trying to address. But ultimately, there is a call to consult with for the special rapporteur, rather, to consult with various stakeholders, as is happening right now, and to support the development of guidelines, as we are going to do going forward as participants in this room. So we have had a very brief moment of time to talk about these resolutions. Thank you, Mabel. Thank you, Uyanda. But once again, a call to the audience in the room to join us in getting resolutions going. Your content has been shared with the organizers, and I'm sure this is something that will continue going on. The areas and opportunities to engage with these resolutions will be made available. But I'd just like to once again point out that this is an effort that is being driven by the African Alliance for Access to Data. Look them up. Also look up Media Monitoring Africa, as well as SOS, which is the Support Public Broadcasting Coalition in South Africa. All doing phenomenal work. Uyanda, we are running short for time, hence speeding through this discussion. We had a series of questions lined up, but we'll have to wind up. We'll, however, make room for 1 or 2 questions if there's any reactions from the floor. Any reactions? So no reactions at this point. I'll take it that everybody is thinking about their contributions to the guidelines that they're going to be sharing. But once again, thank you and congratulations to ALP East Africa, Paradigm Initiative, the East Africa Law Society, and CIPESA for assembling all of us here together. It's been a wonderful time of insights and information. But once again, a call to engage with these resolutions and have a say, and not, and you know, we often say we missed out on the opportunity. The opportunity is here and it's right now. So please engage. If you have any further queries, you can reach out to me. My email address is juliet@cipesa.org. That's JULIET @CIPESA, CIPESA.org. And we'd be happy to carry this conversation forward, including with the various entities driving consultations on these 3 resolutions. So once again, thank you and all the best going forward.
Wow, thank you so much. Another big round of applause for this very wonderful panel. I hope you're not losing energy. Are you? Otherwise, I'll call my good friend to make us do some physical exercises. Gaudius, you want to give us an icebreaker? By the way, for those who don't know, Gaudius is the gentleman in a suit. So he can give us a very good icebreaker. But that said, ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the climax of our event. It's really been lovely having you this morning and afternoon. And with us this afternoon is a very esteemed guest. That is Mr. Baker Barijuka, Acting Data Protection Commissioner. I hope I'm not butchering the title. At the National Information Technology Authority, NITA Uganda. We are very honored to have you, Baker. Thank you so much for committing your time to come here. I ambushed you this morning, but still made it here. And thank you for accepting to come and officially close the session. So we are very happy to hear from you. In the room are lawyers, some whom have been part of a 2-day intense training on digital rights and AI. And then we have stakeholders in the room, academics, and a number of other personnel. So we'd like to welcome you. A round of applause as he comes. And thank you so much for being here.
Good afternoon to you. Good afternoon. I know I'm standing between you and lunch, but I have teacher instinct, so I would like to have attention as we wind up. As introduced, my name is Baker Barijuka. My name is one of the test areas around data protection and privacy. One, it starts with the mispronunciation of my name. Bring out the principle of accuracy. It's not, it's a challenge I've had growing up. So I use it as an example to show data protection and privacy. As the speakers talked about, it has a number of principles, and accuracy is one of them. So based on the regions, when I was growing up, people from Buganda would call me Barikuja. People from the east would call me Birikwida. From the west, they will call me Birikwija. But my name is Birikuja. Thank you all for coming here. I hope you'll not forget that data protection principle of accuracy. The conversations that we've had, they are very important around data protection and privacy and AI, the intersection. I listened in keenly from what the different players, actors from civil society, private sector, and it was enriching to get those perspectives. And some were raised. I thought I would also use this opportunity to highlight. There was the discussion of the Malabo Convention. The Malabo Convention, yes, what is called the Cybersecurity and Personal Data Protection Convention of the African Union. Uganda, we haven't yet ratified it, neither have we signed it, but there is work ongoing. It's championed by the Ministry of ICT and National Guidance. Now, there were discussions around wondering why we have such an old convention. The way it was enacted is that you could only amend after it came into force. So in Mauritania, ratified it in June 2023, the process started. Some work was being done, so conversations are ongoing around that. Then on the resources, I liked, it was Doctor who talked about PDPO. I come from the Personal Data Protection Office. Sorry, I didn't greet you. Good afternoon to you. The Personal Data Protection Office is an office within the National IT Authority, NITA-U. And yes, we have challenges of resources, both human and financial, but we do our level best. You being in this room, you can engage the powers that be to support the office. We are trying our level best both within the country and also across borders. And across borders, as well as the speakers indicated, there is a need to have something being done at the regional level to do with data protection and privacy and even AI. The East African community is in the process of developing an East African Data Protection and Privacy Act. Discussions have started, but it's also feeding into the East African community's strategy around use of data, which also mirrors that coming from the African Union. It has elements of emerging technologies. Again, as one of the speakers said, there is need for public participation. You know, people request for these laws, these policies, but when it comes to receiving comments, many people do not contribute. As PDP or the regulator, we are developing many, operationalizing the law. We encourage you with the same vigor that we've been seeing in the room, tasking government to do ABC. Please provide your comments. And I also want to give a special thanks to the organizers, because they've been consistent around these conversations. It didn't start today, and I request it doesn't end today. With that, I thank you for having attended the training and contributing to the discussions. Good afternoon to you once again.
Thank you so much, Becca, and apologies for butchering your name. It's the principle of accuracy that I've taken note of and will certainly rightly apply it in any forthcoming event. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings our forum to a close, and we'd like to send a special vote of thanks to you that have been here with us from morning till now. A round of applause for yourself. Thank you so much to our dear facilitators, Dr. Nori and the entire team. Thank you for being here with us. You esteemed stakeholders, it's good to have you here. And this is to formally say thank you and close the session. And I wish you all a very lovely afternoon. Please be on the lookout for more of these training opportunities. Like CIPESA said, there is more training that is coming up in September. The East Africa Law Society is planning to have another training on digital rights as well sometime in July. So there's a lot of opportunities to grow and explore this area. So let's be hungry, let's keep looking out, and we hope to see you all again. Thank you. Do you do a group photo? Yeah, I'm told there are those who missed out on the first group photo. So I'd like to invite us all to the front. I don't know how we shall fit. And then we take a group photo and then depart from this place. Thank you. Our team, camera, please, let's be ready. Please, I would like to invite you to the front. Don't be camera shy. Okay. Let's take a quick group photo, capture this memory. Laston, thank you. You can lead the team as you come up here. Thank you. And then we'll depart at leisure. Please, people, let's have a group photo. Thank you. Okay, thank you, people. We want to capture this memory in the shortest time possible. So I request you to come and be here. Thank you, thank you, thank you. It's a beautiful picture, so thank you. Aya, camera, let's make this short, nice and sweet. Thank you so much for being part of this event. All right, let's have those